We're back.
Hey, how are you?
I have Mark Bederow, special guest Mark Bederow is joining us for the afternoon. Here he is.
With a little pause for my own court appearance.
I know. So you'll go out for your virtual appearance and then you'll come back. But
Yes.
I'm going to full screen you for a minute while I just finish eating this protein bar so you can give everyone your thoughts from what you saw this morning, and I'll come back.
Sure.
Go ahead, Mark. You're on.
Hi. Thoughts about this morning? I don't know what to say. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. You had a witness who appeared to be lying repeatedly, denying the undeniable with basic things that are contained in his own documents and text messages. His demeanor is just atrocious. Where the other day he was looking at the jury, trying to be all calm, and on direct examination today, he's very sheepish. He's staring at the floor. He's closing his eyes as he's just getting bludgeoned repeatedly and effectively by Alan Jackson, who is using the text messages not just to show how awful Proctor is, but to weave it into his theory of the case and why it matters. I mean, some of the things that he's talking about, his lack of a relationship with the Alberts, is beyond belief. And he finishes the day with this, what appears to be different version of the video that everyone has seen, and begs the question what he's talking about. So this is an unmitigated disaster for the DA. This guy has no credibility. Everything he said, I can't even remember all of it. We talked about the medical examiner. He kind of had a ridiculous story about trying to influence or not influence them. What he did investigatively, how he scrubbed Colin Albert out of the report right around the time that there was discussion of getting a gift from Julie Albert to his family, which seems to connect that dot. Was that a quid pro quo? Thank you for that. So we want to get you something. It just goes on and on. Just terrible, terrible witness, and can't see how the DA can possibly survive with this.
Where is his lawyer? That's my question.
I thought for sure he was not going to testify. I thought he would take the fifth. I mean, he chose to go all in. He certainly did. I don't know why. I think he's created big problems for himself already. And God knows what's left in these last 40 minutes, because I assume we're going to pick up with what the hell is going on in these various Sally Port videos, which is just crazy.
Did he testify that he just saw a video yesterday?
I think he testified it was recently. I don't know if he said day by day, but it certainly appears that the video he's talking about, or that he claims he was referring to, was only acknowledged around the time that the feds were putting witnesses in the grand jury, which amazing how things appear that previously might have been hidden when the feds come knocking. But then he claimed he saw a video that had a different timestamp color, I believe.
Yellow. Mm-hmm.
Acknowledged that the timestamp had been tampered with or inverted.
Mm-hmm.
He acknowledged that people, including Chief Berkowitz, which was an interesting thing he said, were appearing and disappearing. But at the same time, he was pretty clear that the video itself was accurate in the sense that it wasn't inverted or otherwise distorted. So
right.
I don't know what the hell he's talking about.
And he says it came from Rafferty to Tully.
That's what he said. That's what he said. And I don't know how they're going to flesh this out and see exactly what he's talking about, but nothing that he's saying seems to make much sense, or certainly nothing he's saying appears to be credible on virtually every topic. He's worse than I thought, which is saying a lot, because I thought he'd be pretty bad, obviously.
No, people were saying this morning, where's Mark? Is he going to come? I said, he has an open invitation. He can come whenever. And then coincidentally, when I went downstairs to get some lunch, you were like, we should have done this today. I'm like, come on, let's do it.
This is
if he did see this yesterday, remember, he's still under oath. He's still on the stand. Wouldn't that be completely improper for Lally to be showing him evidence yesterday?
If he saw it yesterday, literally yesterday, while he is already on cross-examination, that's a problem.
Yeah.
They should not be communicating. I mean, that's lawyer 101. When a party is being examined by the other one, it's verboten for you to do anything.
Mhm.
And so he should not have been talking to him yesterday. Now, if somebody was asking earlier, well, what if he saw it before trial? I mean, if he saw it a couple days ago before he testified, that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with prepping witnesses and showing them evidence that you're going to offer. But yeah, if this happened yesterday, that Lally has yet another ethical problem.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think we're up to at least 3 lies today
It
that we've
also
counted.
do something else. If Proctor digs in on that point
Mhm.
and Lally disputes that, then he potentially is making himself a witness if they watched it alone. Not now, if Lally were a witness in the case, there'd be a mistrial. It's after jeopardy. The whole thing would collapse. So, the judge is going to want to avoid that. But the question is, what does Lally do if Proctor is maintaining that this happened yesterday? There were no other witnesses. It's just the two of them. And Lally's position is that's not true. Then he has the choice. Do I, tell the judge that I will confirm that that's not true, and you can put that in front of the jury and kneecap his own witness at the same
Mm.
time? Does he make himself a witness? This is such a joke. All of this is so bad.
The ethical dilemmas are plenty.
Yeah.
I We're still here, and here we are. We are still here. I can't even
I mean,
speak. I'm so flummoxed.
you could make a credible argument that even just the other day when Proctor testified that Lally was suborning perjury, if you wanted to. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know how any reasonable person, certainly a reasonable prosecutor, could possibly believe the testimony he gave about his, on certain things, like his relationship with the Alberts. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, it turns out they're getting wasted, drunk driving in the cruiser, losing guns and badges, and he says, "I don't even know the guy."
Well, first he said it was only Kevin, it was only Julie and Chris and Colin, and
Right.
then he whips out these messages about Kevin, the Canton police officer, which that's all new information to
But
me.
but also look what he said. Now again, it's funny because in this case, everybody's acquaintances. If you recall, no one's
Oh,
ever
yeah.
friends.
Mhm,
Everyone's an acquaintance. But he said that Kevin Albert was an acquaintance that he has gone drinking with several times,
mhm.
that he has socialized several times. So whether you want to call him a friend or an acquaintance, that certainly would seem to be somebody when asked, by a prosecutor, including Lally and his supervisor, I guess it came out. And he was saying, all I know are these minor relationships with Julie and Chris. It's clearly not true. The relationship with them appears to be more the babysitting, the socializing, the offers of gifts, all of those things, than the drinking with Kevin Albert. I mean, you've got to be pretty friendly to go drunk and driving in your cruiser and
Mhm.
text each other the next day laughing about, do you have my gun and badge? And I'm going to drink a few more to make the headache go away and that sort of thing.
And
So
that was during the pendency of this investigation. That was in July of
during,
2022.
and then
You left your badge in my car.
and the further conversations with Albert, who, as a Canton detective should not have been talking about it, tipping him off who they're speaking to. I mean, you heard him mention Katie. Is that where they got to Katie? Is
Mhm.
that when the Alberts, Proctor gave Kevin Albert, who gave the other
Yeah.
Alberts, we got to talk to her. Kevin Albert offering the Canton police room where they have the cameras, and Proctor says, I didn't want to use it, although he kind of twisted himself into a knot as to why. But there's a relationship there, and he clearly was lying about that the other day, and certainly even earlier today, amongst other things. I mean, the list with him is endless.
Is growing. And then saying that we don't typically record witness interviews. It's not part of our procedure. Evidence logs. Yeah, no, I don't know anything about evidence logs. I'm just the case manager here. I know nothing about evidence logs.
Here's the scary thing about Proctor. If you choose to believe him, I mentioned this online at the very beginning, after about 30 minutes of this, give him the benefit of the doubt and say, I'm going to believe him. He's just an honest broker in what he's doing. Then you should be terrified of this guy's tunnel vision, because he had the whole thing solved in 16 hours based on
Mhm.
the shoe and everything else. And at that point, he said there was nothing else to do. I didn't need to speak to the Alberts. I didn't I didn't know about Jennifer McCabe's phone. I didn't talk to these people. I didn't need to go to the crime scene. I didn't care that the ME was going to classify this as an undetermined cause
Right.
and manner of death because she was getting arrested anyway. It's never happened in my career before, but it didn't bother me, even though they're having these messages talking about it was a rookie move. You didn't get it done. And he says, Yuri and I called her twice. We met with her. We showed her pictures. I mean, they were clearly
She's a whack job.
Notice how it's always she in this case.
Of
In
course.
his, it's interesting. That's two whack jobs, two female whack jobs for him.
In true misogynistic fashion.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
he's not calling any guys a whack job, right?
No, it does seem to fit with everything he's doing, but he's just completely gotten to the point now where he's given up. I don't think he even cares that he doesn't make any sense anymore. When you see him doing this, like just closing his eyes, like he knows he's getting hurt, it's unbelievable.
It strains credulity, and the whole thing is just what a mess. What a mishigas. And here we are.
Here we are.
And they're back. So I know that you're gonna jump off when you have to do your virtual court appearance.
Yeah.
So we will just jump back when you can.
Okay.
I want to make sure I'm clear about this. You indicated that the video that you watched was proper in terms of orientation, but the timestamp on the bottom had been inverted, correct?
Yes, that's the way it appeared.
And you recall that being a yellow chyron underneath.
To the best of,
In other words, the font color.
to the best of my memory, yes.
Which of the Canton Police Department videos were you responsible for retrieving, if any?
I did not retrieve any of them.
So what I'm trying to ask is, and maybe I'm doing it inartfully, how did those Sallyport videos end up in the possession of the Commonwealth? What was the line of succession?
Detective Lieutenant Tully retrieved the Sallyport videos, I believe.
And do you know from whom he retrieved those Sallyport videos?
I believe it was the chief of police.
Okay, Chief Rafferty specifically gave him whatever videos were provided.
Correct. That's my understanding.
And then he provided those to you for your review.
Yes.
I want to stay on the subject of videos for a second, but shift gears to the Ring video footage. You've already testified that there were several hundred Ring videos from One Meadows, from both the facing the driveway and the front door camera, correct?
Yes.
As the case officer, you obtained and controlled those Ring videos from One Meadows from the moment that they came into Massachusetts State Police custody until they were handed over to the Commonwealth, correct?
Yes, they were archived.
You drafted the search warrant for the Ring video access records, correct?
I did.
You obtained the warrant returns once those search warrants were executed, correct?
I did.
You took possession of Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone physically, correct?
Yes.
And you had access to Mr. O'Keefe's Ring account in that cell phone. Is that right?
Correct.
You indicated that you reviewed several of the videos on his Ring app on his cell phone. Is that right?
Yes.
So you obviously had not only possession of his cell phone, you had possession of his login account information to get into the app on his cell phone. Is that right?
I don't believe we had the password. We had his email account associated with the Ring.
Which means
app.
some
So
way
you-
or another, you could get access to the Ring videos
Correct.
and watch those Ring videos on his app on the phone,
Yes.
which means you
Well,
had full
now who
access to
deleted
the app. You could
Yeah, of course.
keep videos, you could save for later, you could delete videos, you could do anything you wanted to within that app, correct?
Yes, those are the capabilities within that app.
Trooper Proctor, did you delete any of the Ring videos ever from John O'Keefe's phone?
Absolutely not.
Did you delete a video of Miss Reed arriving to One Meadows at approximately 12:41 a.m. on January 29th, 2022?
Absolutely not.
You will agree, Trooper Proctor, that the video of Miss Reed returning home from 34 Fairview at approximately 12:41 a.m. is not there.
Correct.
As the case officer, you're aware that Trooper DeChico also reviewed some or all of those videos, correct?
Yes.
And he did that at your request.
Correct.
He took notes of his review of those videos, correct?
Yes.
And then he provided those notes to you so that you could then memorialize those notes and your notes in a broader report that you then drafted in November of 2022, correct?
From memory serves me, the report I wrote regarding the Ring camera was based off my observations of the videos that I had watched.
But you certainly did have, as you just indicated, you did accumulate his notes and review his notes as well as your own notes, correct?
Best of my recollection, I wrote that report off of my notes.
Did you actually, at any point before writing your report, did you note or did you review his notes?
I can't recall.
You asked him, he reviewed the videos at your directions, correct? At
Yes.
your direction, correct?
Yes.
And obviously he would have wanted to provide you whatever insights he had into his review of those videos. Otherwise, what's the point, right?
Correct.
So when you reviewed his notes, did you see that they were on some sticky pads? You remember that?
That sounds about right.
You know, he's got receipts. He doesn't, Alan Jackson does not question it without receipts.
Do you recall exactly, as you sit here, exactly what was on one or more of those sticky pads that you reviewed from Trooper DeChico?
I don't know.
Would it refresh your recollection if you would take a look at a copy of those notes?
Yes.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
They're just a scooch behind.
If you would mind taking a look at the top or the uppermost top note that's highlighted with a sticky note next to it.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. May I approach?
Yes.
Trooper Proctor, do you have these notes in mind, specifically the uppermost note?
The 0041?
Correct.
Yes.
You reviewed this previously before you wrote your report, correct?
Yes.
All right. And you note that at 0041, which is a time relative to what DeChico was looking at on the Ring video, he indicated taillights from driveway, parentheses, I think she arrived home, in parentheses, correct?
Correct.
What? So did Chico saw that video, you think?
That's what it sounds like. He took notes.
0041 is what? Is that in reference to?
Just after midnight, the approximate time where Miss Reed will be returning from Fairview Road.
It's military
How would they
time
know?
for 12:41 a.m.
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
You wrote a report.
They saw the video and
I'm
now it's
sorry,
gone.
I
That's
know you were
what
saying
this
November.
is.
It's actually June 1,
He's going to throw DeChico under the bus and say, well, it's his note. I never saw that.
2022, memorializing the times.
His report probably says 1241, which would put Proctor.
Memorializing the times that were of
Yes.
note to you in that Ring footage, correct?
Yes.
Do you recall every single entry that you made concerning the events that were of note to you that were reflected in your report?
The majority of them. We don't every single one.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at a copy of your report to determine
It's going to be
what
in
all
his
you
report.
did and did not note?
Yes, sir.
May I approach?
So
Well,
he
do you have
saw
a
it
future
and it no
review?
longer exists, which, you know, means he probably got rid of it.
It was there and now it's not. And did
Lally-
he put it in his
Lally-
report?
It seems like he did. We'll find out. But Lally has been suggesting that, you know, Karen Reed is the one who deleted this and must have had access to it. And of course, then the kids, not that we saw this, but we heard about it. The kids said she didn't even know it.
Yep.
And
But she didn't have access to it. Yeah.
this could be a headshot for him.
Just keeps going from bad to worse.
Yeah, just Proctor, do this in the next 5 minutes so I can see this before I run off.
Right.
as to page 2 and 3.
Well, you know, it'll take him 10 minutes to review this report because he's just going to have to think of an excuse.
Exactly. He's thinking shit.
Can you rephrase this again? Can you rephrase it? Can you repeat the question? Can we have a read back? Oop, there it is.
It's so awful. I mean, this is cringe inducing to watch this guy just light himself on fire constantly.
Why would he risk everything
All he had to do was take the fifth.
for this for these people?
Your report is dated June 1st, 2022, correct?
Correct.
And reflected in this report are the bullet points of the times that you found
There you go. Here
some
it comes.
notes in your review of all of the ring footage from One Meadows, correct?
Yes.
In your report, there is no mention of the footage showing Karen Reed arriving home at 12:41 a.m., correct?
Correct.
And that's notwithstanding the fact that in Trooper DeChico's report, in his handwritten notes, he makes note of an event at 12:41 a.m.
So this is fascinating because this is the same pattern he did with the Colin Albert situation. He learned about it in their internal notes, or what they think may be internal, not disclosed. They note what they're told. And then when he prepares his report, just like he whitewashed Colin Albert, what he apparently did was whitewash the video of her coming home that they saw that.
DeChico says he saw it. It existed.
Yep.
And Lally must know about this. He's got the same TUI materials that the defense does. Did they not freaking read it? Why are they going down the track with this entire narrative for this entire trial that Karen deleted the video?
I go further and go back to what I said 5 minutes ago. You could make a credible argument that Lally has gone too far down the rabbit hole and is literally knowingly presenting false evidence, which of course is a disbarable type offense. It's certainly unethical. And, you know, he's going to have to pay the piper for this. When this thing is going to explode, which will be today, tomorrow, a month, whatever it is, when this case is over, he can't possibly have elicited the testimony he did during this case and made the arguments that he's made in good faith, knowing what's happening here. I mean, he had to know this was going to happen.
My heart is pounding out of my chest as if I'm the one who's facing disbarment on this, because this is horrific.
Indicating, I think she arrived home, correct?
Correct.
So sometime between when Trooper DeChico wrote his notes and when you wrote your report, that video footage vanished, correct?
There's also no date on Trooper DeChico's notes. We have many dates from Ring video, so I don't know if he's referencing a different date.
Well, you're aware that the video footage from 12:41 a.m. is gone, correct?
Yes, it's something I've tried to find through Ring for months, as well as the video when Miss Roberts, Miss McCabe, Miss Reed arrived back at John's and they're looking at the broken taillight. That video is gone as well.
Okay, shut up, because that video doesn't exist because Kerry Roberts testified they looked at the taillight in John McCabe's driveway. So enough with that BS. Stop trying to deflect.
His habit of trying to justify by saying what other people have testified for which he doesn't have any firsthand knowledge is just getting old, and he's doing it again.
Wow.
So at some point, while this footage was in Massachusetts State Police custody and being reviewed by Trooper DeChico, that video existed, didn't it?
Objection.
The objection is sustained. Mr. Jackson, don't wave that again, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh, he waved something around. Witness needs a bucket again, Your Honor.
Notwithstanding Trooper DeChico's handwritten notes.
Yeah, water
there's no
break.
video of 12:41. You can't
A lot of water breaks for this guy. I can understand why.
No, there isn't.
So did Dr. DeChico, did DeChico delete it or did you?
Trooper Proctor, would you agree?
This is brilliant too, because DeChico is a name he keeps saying because he's coming right up the pipeline just like Tully. And Lally just keeps serving them up for them to elicit this, put it in the jury's brain. And then he's going to say, Your Honor, the Commonwealth calls to Chicho, and the jury's just going to say, my God, we know it's coming.
Mm-hmm. Tully's supposed to be up next after him. He's in the courthouse, people have said. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I think this will go all day with him, but we'll see.
That from the very beginning of your investigation, you treated Karen Reed very differently than you treated the Alberts and the McCabe's in this case.
Objection.
I'll allow it. Was she treated differently?
Absolutely not. Like I've said before, we follow the facts and the evidence, an open mind.
Did you consider her to be, for want of a better phrase, an outsider?
No, not at all.
Not somebody from Canton,
No, not at all.
not family, not friends with the Alberts?
Absolutely not.
At some point, your view of this case caused you to turn what could be described as a bias into an out-and-out hatred. Would you agree with that?
Here it comes. Here comes that suicide
Did you
text.
develop some sort of hatred for Miss Reed?
It's been
Objection.
holding that one text.
I'll allow it.
Yep. That's the
Again.
finale.
We follow the facts and the evidence which showed Miss Reed hit Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle. And yes, at times I got emotional because of that. And I said some stuff, texted some things I shouldn't have, but it was based off the evidence.
Emotional? You're a police
Matter of fact, you
officer
did
doing an
express
investigation.
your
You don't get
feelings about
emotional.
Reed.
Right, right. When did this
sorry.
become personal to you, Proctor?
You're a professional detective investigating hundreds and hundreds of cases, many homicides. And this one, because John O'Keefe was a police officer, it got you so emotional that you started sending all these crazy texts. If that's the case, all he's doing is making it feel, or making people feel like, well, if you get emotional that easy, how many other cases have you sent these emotional texts?
Is he even
mean-
saying that it was because it was a police officer? I think it's because
He
his
hasn't
friends
said
were
that
involved.
yet.
Right, his friends were involved because the Alberts were involved in this. So that's why he got so emotional, because he had to.
There's no
protect his
reason for
friends.
this to be personal. This is ridiculous. Or you recuse yourself.
Yeah. Or you don't work with Kevin Albert, Brian's brother, on
Right.
scheduling things and go out drinking, and he leaves his gun in your car maybe.
And yet
So I've
another
got about
text
2
message that we
minutes,
have-
and I'm just going to mute myself and turn the camera
Okay.
off, and then
Cool.
I'll come back. I'll
And
probably
then
miss
come back.
Yeah.
You got it.
haven't gone over yet today. Is that right? On February 4th, 2022?
February 4th of 22. So this is, she
Might as
was
well turn to tab 10.
Tap,
she's
tap.
arraigned on the 2nd, 2 days after her arraignment. This is
It's
early.
either the bait stamp or the,
This is triple F, as in Foxtrot. And the base stamp is 2526.
This has got to be the suicide one, right?
From
I think
Courtney
so.
Proctor, a text starting, I didn't give my
Yes.
request permission to publish, Your Honor.
yes.
Oh, good. I love the big screen.
2526, Mr. Bates. On that date, February 4th, 2022, your sister texted in relation to some sort of donation that she had given. I didn't give my name as I didn't want anyone to link me to Michael, meaning you, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach?
Okay, take that down.
Wait, we could read.
I'm gonna hop off, and I'll be back in a few.
Okay. Hopefully they'll take
Yeah.
a long sidebar.
Yeah, I-
We'll see you.
I'm good.
We'll see you when you get back.
Okay.
We'll see Mark when he gets back. I just want to rewind that so that we can read it to ourselves, so we know that what they're sidebarring
Objection, Your
about.
Honor.
All right. So there's a text from Courtney. This is February 4th, 22. I didn't give my name as I didn't want anyone to link me to Michael. And then she says, whatever you know must be bad because some people just say it was a bad drunken tragedy. And then it says, let's hope she does so it doesn't drag this thing out for this family. And I'm going to assume that's when he wished that she would take her own life. because that's the kind of great guy Trooper Michael Proctor is. Wow. You're just joining. Good afternoon. Mark Bederow is here, but he had to get off to do a court appearance. Luckily, it's virtual, so he will be back.
Or the whole page goes in. That's stricken. That's what was objected to, just this one.
You want to link me.
So that's stricken. That's what was objected to, just this one. Or the whole page goes in.
You responded to a text message from your sister, correct? And your response was, hopefully she kills herself, correct?
Yes,
Who's she?
the defendant.
Miss Reed?
Correct.
You literally said that you hope that Karen Reed, the subject of your investigation, the woman sitting to my left, about 7 feet from me, that she would just die, correct?
The figure of speech.
You wanted her to, the figure of speech is you wanted her to kill herself,
No,
right?
no, it's not.
Trooper Proctor, Karen Reed, in your investigation, had quickly become a very serious problem for you, hadn't she?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you believe that Karen Reed was a problem or an issue for your investigation?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No, absolutely not.
In your words, quote, all the powers that be want answers ASAP. That's what you texted on January 29th, right?
Yes,
That put a lot of pressure on you, didn't it, Trooper Proctor?
there's a lot of pressure in every case, sir.
This case involves a Boston cop whose family you were actually connected to, correct?
Loosely.
Chris Albert, loosely.
Yes,
Julie Albert, loosely.
yes,
Colin Albert, loosely.
yes,
Kevin Albert, loosely.
yes,
Loose enough to leave his badge and his gun in your cruiser after a night of drinking, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
You agreed in your group chat that you needed to, quote, make this cut and dry because another cop was involved. Those are your words, right?
Objection.
Where is this?
This was referred to in earlier text messages. Group
Yeah.
chats this
So is that
was.
right? Did you say that, sir?
We saw it. He
I
did.
did text that. I don't know if it's in the exact context, but yes, those were my words.
Group chat.
Yes, that was in the group chat.
Your friends wrote this whole thing in their words stinks, correct?
Yes, I interpret that as a joke.
You believed, Trooper Proctor, that your life would be much easier if Karen Reed was just dead, didn't you?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No. Like I had said, it was a figure of speech. My emotions got the best of me based on, the fact that Miss Reed hit Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle and left him to die on the side of the road. So my emotions got the best of me with that figure of speech.
Well, let's talk about your figures of speech.
Mhm.
During the course of your investigation, your figures of speech include the following.
Mhm. Good.
She's a bitch,
Objection.
He
that
opened the
right?
door.
Yes,
a whack job, correct?
yes,
A retard, right?
yes,
Her balloon knot leaks, right?
yes,
No ass, correct?
yes,
She's fucked, according to you, right?
yes,
Ass leaker. That was the word you used, a figure of speech, right?
correct,
A girl who shits herself, right?
correct,
And then fuck her, correct?
correct.
Would you agree, Trooper Proctor, that you have dehumanized Karen Reed during the course of your investigation with comments and words like this?
Objection.
I'll give you this one, Mr. Jackson.
Would you agree with that?
I'd say based off that language,
You have to think about it.
yes,
And you admitted in your own words that the cop homeowner wasn't going to, quote, catch any shit, right?
correct,
Because you were out to quote, make this cut and dry. Isn't that right?
the homeowner wasn't going to catch any shit because Mr. Albert had nothing to do with Mr. O'Keefe's death.
Because you were going to make sure that the case was cut and dry. Those were your words, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
And Trooper Proctor, it would be far easier for you to pin it on the girl who's just a whack job cunt, in your words, who you hope just kills herself, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Shame on you, sir.
Objection.
All right, so jurors, disregard that. I've told you before, lawyers can't make comments. They can ask questions. And Mr. Jackson, you know better than
I
that.
understand. That's all I have.
Shame on you, sir.
Mr. Lally?
I was holding my breath for the end of that. How about you guys? I can't believe Mark had to get off and do a court appearance at exactly the time of these bombshells. So we may need to play it again for him, or he may need to watch it off screen and then come back and give us his thoughts when he is done. But this is outrageous. Trish, thank you. Hit the like button. It helps YouTube math. Thank you. We need to breathe for a minute before we even let Lally get up and do his not so brief redirect, because this cross has been going on for 2 days. San Elmo Star, thank you. I was wrongly arrested and misidentified. When I asked for an attorney, they said I'd have to spend the night first. Is that true? Let me, I'll bring that back for Mark when he comes back, because he is a criminal defense attorney. Amanda, thank you. Cannot believe the arrogance of this man. Surgical precision by Ajax, like I say every time. Thank you, Melanie and Mark. Love you both. Watching Young Turks too. And thanks, Sky Celtic, for becoming a new member. This is next level repulsive. Next level. We're gonna move on. Shame on you was the last thing Alan Jackson said. And the judge told the jury to disregard it, but I think they were all thinking the exact same thing.
Thank you.
We're with you, Fairy Raven. She says, I have chills and I've never been this upset about someone who I've never met.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
No, not such a good afternoon, though, is it for you, Proctor?
When you had started with cross-examination the other day, you were asked some questions about whether or not in August of 2022, you disliked or did not like Mr. Yannetti, correct?
That's correct.
Why was that?
You going to dig this back up, Lally? Because I think the jury kind of forgot about that, but let's bring it up again.
Well, basically, he stood up in open court and spouted lie after lie about me, called me corrupt and conflicted, dragged my name through the mud after I spent 10 plus years without a single complaint filed against me. And he had no basis or no facts of these wild accusations, because there are none. This investigation was done with the utmost integrity, not just by me, but my supervisors and other troopers in my office, as well as Mr. Yannetti shows up at my sister's school yesterday.
Yesterday?
In the parking lot where he's not welcomed, or where people are not supposed to be, with one of their witnesses and their private investigator. And a teacher sees this, it informs Mr. Yannetti that he can't be there. And instead of saying, okay, and leaving, he asks, is Courtney Proctor in the building? Does she work here? She calls me to see if she was being served.
Objection. Can we approach?
Yes.
Wow. What is this about? He says that Yannetti shows up yesterday with the private investigator at Elizabeth Proctor's school. Does she work at a school? Yannetti was at the school yesterday. What does that even mean? And all of this hatred that he had for Yannetti stems from, he says, all of the mean things that Yannetti said about him in open court, that he's done, he destroyed his integrity. Well, I think you're doing a good job of that yourself today. You're doing a good job today, sir. So this hatred that you had for Mr. Yannetti all the way back when, in your text messages, when were those messages? Do you guys remember? without shuffling through my notes and making a whole lot of noise with my paper. I'm not going to be able to tell you. But the messages that he had about his hatred for Yannetti, when were those? It's all Yannetti's fault that Proctor has no integrity, right? Little cupcake, right? More shock and horror. Pretty sure Yannetti didn't go yesterday, maybe within the case. I don't know. He did. He literally just said yesterday, right? But again, I have questions. Says, what does what happened yesterday have to do with a message from years ago? You hated him by month 6. There's Matt from Court TV. Is that Jess Machado over there from Fall River Reporter? The media is live tweeting this as we speak. This is a mess. There's Aiden Carney. Mr. O'Keefe is no longer in the courtroom, and Mrs. O'Keefe, someone has replaced him in that seat, it looks like. Is the jury here? Oh wait, did he say he went to Courtney's school, or did he went to his wife's school? He went to his sister's school? Oh, it went to Courtney's school. Okay. Thanks you guys for clearing that up. We know that his sister is his best friend because he's told us several times that he texts her 5 or 6 times a day. And some people are saying, I thought the sister's a nurse. Wait, so it has been told to me they have taken his badge and gun? And RVA, I can't vouch for the truth or veracity of this. Can't confirm or deny, but I don't know. RVA, how you know that?
You are unmuted.
Free Billy Tibbetts. Free Billy Tibbetts. Here comes the jury. Oh, she was dodging being served. Is she a school nurse? Okay, maybe we're starting to put the pieces together here. His sister works at a Canton school. His wife is in HR. Okay, cleared up. Thank you, guys. To serve her, maybe. That's maybe what they were doing. Maybe he was with the process server. I don't know if it was a witness. Maybe it was the process server. Maybe you guys are right. Because that's what you do when you have to serve somebody who's dodging service.
Thank you. Maybe seated. Close back in session.
Witness 2, please.
We're on real time, my friends.
Jurors, I am striking that last answer. It was probably a partial answer cut off. I'm striking it completely, disregarded. If you took notes, cross the notes out. You're not to consider it in any way. It is completely stricken from the record.
Tell us what it was so that we know.
And Trooper, I'd suggest you listen to the question being asked of
Trooper,
you before you answer
Oh,
it.
the part about her.
Apologies, Your Honor.
Keep your voice up, Mr. Lally.
Trooper Proctor, let me try that again. As far as you were asked about text messages that occurred in August of 2022 in which you indicated that you did not like Mr. Yannetti, correct?
Correct.
And so at the time of that text message, it was sent in August of 2022. Why was that?
In August of 2022. Why was that?
Yes.
The reasons I laid out, the false accusations of being conflicted and corrupt spouted in an open court, which there's zero evidence of.
Really? But you've proven them all correct today. So, you know, when you're going to allege defamation and slander, truth is a complete defense. And I think based on your testimony today, sir, that we've proven all of those allegations true. What say you?
Like I said, I stand by the integrity of this investigation as well as every trooper and supervisor in my office.
Were there also motions filed by Mr. Unetti or by counsel containing photographs of yourself and some children?
Yes.
And what, if anything, were the allegations in regard to the children that were depicted in those photographs?
So the photograph was taken in my parents' backyard.
Objections overruled.
My parents' backyard at a pool party. There's some little kids in the photo. Defense counsel kept insinuating that those were the McCabe's children, when in fact they were my family, my cousins.
Have you at any point in time ever met any children of the McCabe's?
No, sir.
In the course of this investigation, as it was sort of alleged on cross-examination, did you essentially pick a suspect and then try to have the evidence fit that?
Objection.
Form, meeting. In that form, it's strictly not allowed to ask if that way, Mr. Kelly.
How did you conduct this investigation, you and the other troopers in your office?
From the start of this investigation with an open mind. Like I said earlier, we didn't know what we had, possible medical. So as the day went on and we collected more evidence and developed compelling evidence against Ms. Reed.
In one day.
With reference to this investigation, it continued after January 29th, 2022, when you had those text communications with your friends, correct?
Yes.
Was there additional information that you compiled over the course of that investigation following January 29th, 2022?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
Following that date of those text messages on January 29th,
Yes.
2022, was there additional information that was gathered over the course of your investigation by yourself or other troopers involved in the investigation?
Yes.
And from that additional information that was gathered, what, if any, information that was gathered throughout the course of the investigation indicated that anyone besides Ms. Reed had anything to do with Mr. O'Keefe's death?
All the information gathered after that date indicated no one else was responsible for Mr. O'Keefe's death.
Did you look into anybody else
And so You
ever?
were asked some questions on cross-examination about testimony in a prior proceeding and shown specifically at page 01563, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
And ask you to read those and look up.
What were the numbers again, Mr. Lally?
We're a little behind, but I think now we're on real time. Look at us. Right, Amanda? Why is he doing this? This isn't helping him. It's only showing what a lying narcissist he truly is. Sometimes you just got to sit down and say, I have no more questions for this witness, Your Honor. Thank you, Megan. Melly, Jackson really said that. Yes, he did. Thanks, Melly. Shame on you, he said, for sitting down emphatically with authority. Take your time, sir. We have all day. Oh, yeah, Tommy? Tommy says Jackson held back 2 big things for recross. Oh, boy, he's not liking what he's seeing. We should be on real time, Team Brittany. We're on real time.
Page of that
Maybe not.
testimony.
Yes.
And those were questions related to what you had told and what you had informed other people within the office or your supervisors in relation to relationships with both McCabe's and the office, correct?
Correct.
And in the course of that testimony, did you relay to that body the same testimony you just relayed to this jury in regard to photographs of children and defense counsel attributing those to being the McCabe children, which they were not.
Yes.
Now, you were asked some questions by Mr. Jackson in regard to what you knew or why your focus was not on Brian Alberts later on in the evening of January 29th, 2022, correct?
Correct.
And why was that? Why was your focus not on Brian Albert at that time?
There was just no evidence that Mr. Al was involved anyway. Like I said before, the from witness interviews, the statements Ms. Reed provided to witnesses, the one shoe left at the scene, the taillight pieces found underneath the snow that were dug out by the CERT team, the injuries to Mr. O'Keefe, the one shoe at the hospital that was observed, her statements to us, Sergeant Mechanic and I, while we interviewed her, clearly the broken taillight, and the fact that leaving Brockton, instead of going to Dighton, she backtracked to go to Canton to retrieve her vehicle and then go double back to go to Dighton, which I found odd.
You found it odd that she would go get her car and take some of her personal belongings with her to go to her parents' house when her boyfriend was found dead that morning? You find that odd? Really? You find that odd? You don't know anything about any broken taillight at 2:30 when you call for a tow for that vehicle, do you? Hadn't seen any Ring doorbell footage indicating anything wrong with the car when you called for that tow, did you? So basically what you're saying here is that you've got your mind made up because of what Jen and Matt McCabe and Brian Albert told you. That's what you're saying. You're an embarrassment. You are an embarrassment to law enforcement officers everywhere, worldwide, sir. And you mentioned the one shoe thing at least twice. And yet you've only witnessed 3, maybe 4 pedestrian accidents in your entire career. And the one that you said that you saw the shoes come off the person was at 60 miles an hour. Go scratch.
Now, if at any point in time over the course of your investigation you had evidence which led you to believe that Mr. Albert was involved in the death of Mr. O'Keefe, what would you have done?
Objection.
Ask it differently.
With regard to, again, you testified beyond January 29th. At any point in your investigation, did you find any information or evidence leading you to believe that Brian Albert was involved in the death of John O'Keefe?
Objection.
Hello.
No.
Did you look for it? Oh, do you want to go back and watch the part that you missed?
I missed all the good stuff, didn't I?
You missed some good stuff. You missed some good stuff. I don't know. I don't remember where you left, but you missed the, I hope
I
she.
felt like it was setting up for the, the suicide text.
Yep. It was all in there. And then there was some testimony about, why do you hate Yannetti? And then he said he hates Yannetti because yesterday he went to his sister's school.
Whoa,
and was interviewing a witness in the parking lot.
Wait a minute. He sent a text message in like 2022 saying, I hate Yannetti.
Right.
And the reason is because what he did yesterday.
Yeah. And then he said that, when the judge struck all that, now he's saying that he hated David Yannetti because of some photos that he put in about some children that were his cousins, but he said they were Jen McCabe's children. And also because he got up in open court and was accusing him of not having any integrity with regard to this investigation. And basically all of the allegations he says Yannetti made, which this witness has proven to be true today and yesterday based on his testimony. So there's
Ironically, yes.
Ironically,
Wow.
right? So apparently his sister Courtney works at a school, and Yannetti may or may not have been in the parking lot yesterday with a witness interviewing Lucky, or maybe it was a process server. We don't really know. But again, that has nothing to do with why he hated Yannetti in August of 2022 when he sent those
Does the
messages.
wife work at a school? She must.
His sister. It's his sister, apparently. Courtney.
They're probably there to subpoena her.
That's what I was thinking. Maybe it's a process server.
Find the text and just
Mhm.
twist the knife a little further. I mean, that's not rocket science. I don't know why he would be.
He's,
Had found information leading to that conclusion. conclusion or evidence leading to that, what would you have done?
Yeah, let's just take this back a second because now, he's saying he never suspected Brian Albert and all of the reasons why he knew that Brian Albert was not involved. So here's about the photographs. Maybe you can help me with this.
Testimony.
Yes.
And those were questions related to what you had told and what you had informed other people within the office or your supervisors in relation to relationships with both the McCabe's and the Alberts, correct?
Correct.
And in the course of that testimony, did you relay to that body the same testimony you just relayed to this jury in regard to photographs of children and defense counsel attributing those to being the McCabe's children, which they were not?
Yes.
Now, we were asked some questions by Mr. Jackson in regard to what you knew or why your focus was not on Brian Alberts later on in the evening of January 29, 2022, correct?
Correct.
And why was that? Why was your focus not on Brian Albert at that time?
There was just no evidence that Mr. Albert was involved anyway. Like I said before, from witness interviews, the statements Ms. Reed provided to witnesses, the one shoe left at the scene, the taillight pieces found underneath the snow that were dug out by the CERT team, the injuries to Mr. O'Keefe, the one shoe at the hospital that was observed, her statements to us, Sergeant Mechanic and I, while we interviewed her, clearly the broken taillight, and the fact that leaving Brockton, instead of going to Dighton, she backtracked to go to Canton to retrieve her vehicle and then go double back to go to Dighton, which I found odd.
That he found out.
Yeah, odd that she would go pick up her vehicle and pick up some personal belongings to go to Dighton.
Of all of the oddities that were apparently not odd, that she went back to Canton where her boyfriend might have been missing and whatnot, that was the odd part.
Oh, no, after she got released from the Section 12, he's saying that it was odd that instead of going straight to Dighton from the hospital, she went home to retrieve her car and some belongings and then go all the way back to Dighton. So that in his mind made her guilty. When he called for a tow of her vehicle at 2:30, they hadn't found any taillight pieces yet. He hadn't seen any video of the condition of the car. But,
Yeah,
because it was odd. She went to
that
get her
testimony from the other day where they said they called the tow people before they went down there. That was one of those little asterisks I made. That
Yep.
that doesn't wash at all.
2:30. He's calling for a tow
Yeah,
based on what McCabe's and Brian Albert told him.
and the shoe and one
And the
shoe.
shoe. The
It's
shoe.
in
We
his
can't.
experience, there you might lose a shoe, right?
Investigation, you had evidence which led you to believe that Mr. Albert was involved in the death of Mr. O'Keefe. What would you have done?
Objection.
Ask it differently.
With regard to, again, you testified beyond January 29th. At any point in your investigation, did you find any information or evidence leading you to believe that Brian Albert was involved in the death of John O'Keefe?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No.
Now, if you had found information leading to that
come on.
conclusion or evidence leading to that, what would you have done?
Sustained.
I'll allow it.
You can't allow that.
He didn't look. He didn't
Now
look
we're-
for anything to incriminate Brian
Now we're
Albert.
going to let him speculate where if something that didn't happen had happened, what I would have done is this. And of course, it's like you said, it's all self-serving, conclusory nonsense. I didn't find any evidence to link Brian Albert, but you didn't look. You had her pegged within 10 minutes.
Mhm.
So this is totally nonsense.
I didn't do it, but if I did it, here's what I would have done.
It's all like self-serving, conclusory, circular logic nonsense.
She'll allow it.
Not only
Oh.
myself, but members of my office would have pursued that,
Others. Now he's
Regardless of his position, correct?
regardless of what he does for a profession.
You want me to approach?
Yes.
You, document I showed you the other day, do you recognize that?
That is text communications between me and my high school buddies.
And sir, if I could direct your attention within there to page 2535.
Why would you go back to this?
That's what I'm saying.
enough.
They
Yes,
already
sir.
like forgot
There were
about
some
it. Like,
questions about text on that
What are you
page, but
doing?
Also, there's a text on that page that begins with, "They arrived at house together," correct?
Correct.
And what is the date and time associated with that text message that you sent?
That was sent on January 29th, 2022 at 11 p.m.
And what is the content, or what did you send to that group
Um,
in that text message?
The message reads, they arrived at the house together, got into an argument. She was driving and left.
This is ridiculous because all he's
So that's all-
doing is he sent the text, but it's like basically double hearsay because what he's relying on is what McCabe told him.
right.
That's all that is. He doesn't know what happened. And Lally's presenting this as if this witness actually knows what he's talking about. And all he's doing, I mean, this is like classic double hearsay.
Just let it in.
Also
Oh,
information that you had late in the evening of January 29th, 2022, correct?
Objection.
Inform that, sustained.
With respect to that information you conveyed in that text message, when did you learn that?
During the course of the day on the 29th.
Mayor Pro Tem?
And so it must be true. I mean, they're using it to prove the truth of the matter asserted. Isn't that the definition of hearsay?
he's going to have to recross and say everything you wrote was based on what the McAlberts or whatever they call them, McCabe's and Alberts told you.
Right.
Spoke to on the 29th. Now, you were asking questions about people that you spoke to on the 29th, correct?
Yes.
And that included Brian Albert, Jennifer McCabe, Matthew McCabe, Kerry Roberts, is that correct?
Trooper DeChico and Trooper Dunn interviewed Miss Roberts.
And my apologies. When I was saying you, I meant collectively.
Yes.
When I say you, it can mean anyone.
Specifically yourself and Sergeant Mechanic, you also spoke with the defendant on January 29th, correct?
Correct.
And that would have been prior to any of the text communications that were contained within that chat with your friends, correct?
Correct.
Let me ask you something about charging decisions. Is that something that you make in this case or any case?
I don't make any charging decisions. We're essentially fact finders.
So as
Except
far
for
as
when we don't
what
find any
misleading
facts. We're essentially fact finders, except for when we just take the word of Jen McCabe, Matt McCabe, and Brian Albert as facts.
I is Inspector Clouseau here. You know, it's I just follow the facts with my little magnifying glass and walk around. And
Do-do, do-do,
I mean,
do-do, do-do, do-do,
God.
do-do, do-do.
what a joke.
The Pink Panther.
Yeah.
I think that's the Pink Panther theme.
Yeah, Peter Sellers.
charged with or when she was charged with it, that's not something that's within your purview, correct?
No, not at all.
So the DA is an idiot too, basically.
Yeah, I mean,
Specifically, you were asked some questions about some text messages between yourself and Trooper Chico in regard to the medical exam, correct?
Correct.
And those occurred in April of 2022, is that correct?
Yes.
Was the defendant, Ms. Reed, charged with murder in April of 2022?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
it was in a grand jury investigation. This is not
That wasn't-
proper. That's not proper.
This is when the state grand jury was convened. She wasn't upgraded until
Right. They're in the process
June
of
or
trying
July.
to
Yeah.
upgrade her. And Lowley's saying, but at the time you're fishing around, she's not charged with murder. This judge, I'm sorry, this is pathetic what she's
This is-
allowing right now. This is designed to mislead. What Lowley's doing right now is totally designed to mislead and confuse the jury.
What is, I don't even, what's the question?
The
Was she
question-
charged in April of 2022?
What he's trying to do is make it sound like when you're allegedly intimidating the medical examiner, she wasn't even charged with murder. And because you don't make the charging decisions, that's not what you were trying to do. When in fact, they wanted to upgrade the charges by presenting it to a grand jury. So they want to, grand jury's not going to do it with a crappy autopsy report or testimony from a medical examiner. So Lowley is completely misleading the jury or trying to mislead the jury here. And she's
Oh,
allowing
it's not going
it.
to work. It's not going to work because Alan Jackson
No,
will
That's-
just clean
is
this up.
dirty. What he's doing right now is dirty pool, preying upon their non-legal expertise and trying to confuse them.
Gross.
2022, is that correct?
Yes.
Was the defendant, Ms. Reed, charged with murder in April of 2022?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No.
That wasn't until June of 2022, correct?
It's correct.
And that was at the conclusion of the grand jury, is that correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
And
Oh, woke
They're
up.
not supposed to be talking
You're
about the
waiting
grand
to
jury,
bring-
right?
No.
jury in this case, correct?
Objection. Call the trial.
Okay.
Yes.
And are you aware of certain witnesses that testified at the grand jury?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Yes.
Are you aware that Dr. Sporty Bello testified at the grand jury?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Okay,
This is bad. See, this is totally improper because the grand jury voted an indictment and now he's trying to establish she testified, and notwithstanding her autopsy report, a different jury, a grand jury with a lesser standard, voted an indictment, which is not evidence. And this is completely improper. What's happening right now. This is disgraceful.
I'm in shock and horror because grand
Shock
jury
and
proceedings are
horror.
supposed to be secret. Aren't they sacrosanct? So they're trying to say that, oh, well, just because you weren't able to influence the medical examiner into changing her report, she was still indicted by a grand jury.
This is ridiculous because in the beginning of a trial, when the judge gives, the general instructions and in New York, so I'm sure they do this in Massachusetts too, they would be told specifically the indictment is not evidence. It's merely an instrument that, brings a defendant forth to trial. And what he just did was imply that if you tried to influence the medical examiner to make her upgrade it, and she didn't, but nevertheless, the grand jury still decided to indict her for murder.
Right. So she
And
must
now
be
they're
guilty.
thinking about, right, that this is outrageous what he's doing right now.
Grounds for mistrial. Let's listen. Hold on.
Yes.
And so false reason then that the defendant wasn't charged with murder until after the grand jury concluded and Dr. Sporty Bello had testified before that grand jury. Correct.
Objection. Sustained.
It's already out there.
This is one of the things, if you've heard me rant and rave elsewhere for several weeks now about complaining about this judge, primarily, not that she's corrupt and all that stuff, which I know many people think. I'm not going down that road. What my problem with her is she has no method to her madness in when she overrules or sustains. It's almost like she's flipping a coin in her head, and
Yeah.
she's inconsistent in the span of the same three questions, which are on the same issue. And she's just all over the place as if she just has no clue why she's ruling the way she's doing. This is a shit show what's happening right here.
This is like shaking that magic 8 ball and it comes up like all signs point to yes. Okay.
Yep. This is
Sustained.
pathetic. I mean, I can't believe she's doing this and letting the grand jury indictment become something that the jury's thinking about.
Wow.
Now, the Albert family that you were familiar with some members of, that's not an entity, correct?
No.
Individual members of a family, some you know, some you may not, correct?
Objection.
Sustained. Watch your phone, Mr. Brown.
The Albert family's not an entity?
I wouldn't object to that. I mean, to me, that sounds like, they're not the mafia, right?
Right.
They're
That's exactly what I was thinking.
we're talking about the Albert crime family, right? I mean, this is crazy. Why is he doing this? To tell you the truth, I don't know why he objected to that. I would let, that's the DA talking there.
How many members?
Oh, wait, what just happened? I just skipped ahead. Hold on.
Ran into his aunt and uncle as he's
Okay.
Included and Dr. Sporty Bello had testified.
having Julie watch my kids. I recall
Now, with respect to that data, have you ever been to that home prior to February 10th?
and
Right. It just like skipped ahead on its own.
Evidence leading you to believe that Brian Albert was involved in the death of John O'Keefe.
Objection.
I'll allow it.
I'm trying to figure out where we were, and now I'm completely confused. Did not even touch the button at all, you guys.
The recording device is hurt enough and can't handle it either. And it just
I think
spontaneously.
that, we've broken the internet.
Describing what you spoke
The
with your sister
bullshit
about
meter
before the news
exploded.
already. What did you mean by that?
Yeah.
And those occurred in April 2022, is that correct?
yes.
Okay. We're a little bit past that.
To this investigation.
I recall serving her for grand jury. I know she wanted to kind of have an idea of what the process was like. So there's communications regarding that.
And was that something that was solely done with Julie Albert or
We're,
a ski trip. They weren't a part of it.
we were before this, right?
was the defendant Ms. Reed charged with murder in April of 2020?
We're past that.
Correct?
It's correct.
And that was at the conclusion of the grand jury, is that correct?
Objection.
It was like where they were about the,
Julie, Chris Albert, Colin.
Now, with respect to that date, had you ever been to that home prior to February
I'll
10th?
just go
I
there.
had not been to that. That's kind of their new home. I'd never been to their new home or the previous home either.
Now, as far as conversations with either Julie or Chris Albert, when was the last time you talked to them before you interviewed them on February 10th?
I believe I had reached out to Julie to coordinate the interview, but prior to this case, there was that one random text message she sent me and my sister when I was going on a family ski trip. They weren't a part of it. She wanted me to take a video of my sister skiing, but
That was in February 2022. Correct?
yeah,
So what
Yes.
my question is prior to February 10th, 2022, prior to any arrangements.
This guy is so
scheduled interview for
dumb. He
February
just
10th, when
basically
was the last
said, you know,
time
Julie
spoke
texted
with either
me a
Julie
couple
Albert
days
or
after I
Chris
interviewed her
Albert?
about the skiing.
I
trip.
don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember.
Now, with regard to that text message in regard to skiing in late February 2022, you were shown that text message, correct?
Yes.
Was there any response from you?
No.
Did you have any further communication with Julie Albert after that interview on January 29th, 2022, related to this investigation?
Just the gift. Couple
The
days.
I recall the
Yeah. The babysitting the kids and the gift.
Right.
serving her for grand jury. I know she wanted to kind of
Serving her for
have
the
an
grand
idea
jury.
of what the process was like. So there's communications regarding that.
And was that something that was solely done with Julie Albert or other witnesses or?
All the witnesses that were called in the grand jury, it's unusual for, the majority of civilians to be called in the grand jury. So they obviously have questions about the process.
So he's going to answer their questions about going to the grand jury? That's his job?
Now, as far as babysitting for your children, is that something that Julie Albert ever did?
No.
And as far as those text communications between yourself and your sister regarding that, is that something that you had asked for or something that your sister had suggested?
Yeah, my sister had suggested that. We never followed up with having Julie watch my kids.
Now, you were asked some questions about text messages with your sister Courtney, correct?
Correct.
And I believe a couple times you would use the term, well, let me ask you this first. With regard to from January 29th throughout at least January, February 2022, this was this case became something that was on the news on a fairly regular basis, correct?
News and social media, yes.
And so when you were using the term in describing what you spoke to your sister about as far as newsworthy, what did you mean by that?
My sister lives in Canton, so there's a lot of, as well on the news and social media stuff that was being discussed on those platforms.
Now, as far as the discussions that you had with regard to your sister, how would you describe or how would you characterize the type of information that you shared with her, if any?
Just general information, nothing
Gossip.
specific about the case.
Why is he get him off the stand? Like, make him forgotten. Why are you elongating this miserable process with this stuff?
The longer he talks, the more the jury's going to hate him.
Because nobody's thinking about his definition of newsworthy in the text messages. They're thinking, oh my God, he told her, she's a see you next Tuesday. He did this, he did that.
He wished that she would unalive herself.
Right. That's all they're thinking about. And Lally's talking to him about newsworthy, the definition of newsworthy, with talking to Julie. God, he's just painful to watch.
By
Get
the
him
way, that text to Courtney was, hopefully she kills herself, was on February 4th of 2022.
Oh, so he
That's
was
how
still,
close in time it was to her arraignment, which was February 2nd,
right,
2 days
so
later.
that must have, they arrested her. So he was emotionally upset, even though they
Mhm.
got the girl, as he said.
Yeah.
He got the girl. She got arrested. This is a big day for the good guys. We got our perp, as they say.
Mhm.
And he was still at that point so emotionally pissed off 2 days later that he had a text that she ought to just kill herself.
It wasn't even that he was that deep into it. Like it was a year later or 8 months later, or now he's getting called before a federal grand jury. It's 2 days later. God, that's a POS.
Also asked about a specific text from your sister on January 30th. It started out with, I believe it was Jesus Christ. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that was in reference to the body of Mr. O'Keefe being found on Brian Albert's lawn, correct?
Correct.
And so she's asking you about that on January 30th, correct?
Yes.
So fair to reason that that wasn't something that you shared with her prior to January 30th, correct?
Correct.
Why is he allowed to
Something that
lead,
you hadn't shared with
direct
her
and
at all.
redirect constantly? I mean, obviously the defense doesn't care, but it's really annoying.
Because there are no rules
There are
in this
no
courtroom.
rules. That's
There are
true.
no rules. This might as well be either workers' comp court or like arbitration. There are no rules of evidence here.
I'll allow it.
A
Okay.
kangaroo court is really complimentary.
Yeah.
At that point that you received that text communication, correct?
Correct.
Sustained is to your form. Watch how you ask these questions, Mr. Lally.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
With
I'll
regard
let you
to
lead it.
that information, as far as who the homeowner was, what, if anything, had you shared with your sister Courtney prior to you receiving that text from her, indicating her knowledge?
Yeah, I don't recall sharing anything with in regards to the homeowner.
Well, that makes it okay if she
Now, in
asks.
regard to any
Right. Because,
issues
you know,
of
you
a
told your buddies who the homeowner
Right.
was, but not your sister.
gift or request for a gift, how would you characterize that? Was that serious? Was that in jest? How would you characterize that?
Come on, really? You get to, is this,
Yeah, I
multi-
didn't
is this multiple choice now? Now it's multiple choice? Was it serious? Was it in jest? Was it?
I can't wait to hear what he says about this. This is
Multiple choice.
I didn't take that offer seriously. And as I had mentioned, I believe on Monday, that I didn't ask for a gift. I never received one. I kind of said,
You said get it from my wife.
his response was get something from my wife. That's not taking it that's saying don't give it to me, get her something. And he's saying that this is okay because I never got anything and neither did she. So the fact that we talked about it just disappears
He's not saying because bribes are illegal. He's saying because we never got one.
because we never got it.
Because this isn't all over yet.
And
The
everybody
text
knows,
was, I want to get your brother a thank you gift when this is all over.
you know what that was. Thank you for leaving Colin's name out of the report and keeping him out of it. So I want to, get you something because you were a good guy.
And
That's what
someone
that-
else was already arrested. So
Yep. You
home
did it.
free.
Yep, exactly.
get my wife a gift. She had been home about 10 straight nights with the boys. We had another homicide a week before. So
Did you screw that one up too?
that was my response. Get Elizabeth one. And
Does
she
she-
never received one.
So what? It
Right.
speaks to your state of mind, not whether you got one or not.
Because
I
it would be a bribe and that would be totally improper. So, they can't give me a gift. And he said like 5 times today because his wife was with the kids for 10 days. Now we're learning that they're boys, as if she deserves some sort of reward because she's with the kids for 10 days because he's a police officer and he works real hard. We need to get her a gift because my mind is numb.
this man is gross. He is just, as a police officer, he is just repulsive. He really is.
Not such a great human being either.
No,
I'll admit.
no. And, and this is his best behavior. He's calm, cool, collected. God imagines when he's, the tough guy on the scene, what he
Mhm.
must be like. He's just sick.
Questions about Colin Eller, correct?
Correct.
And as far as what, if any, information did you have as far as Colin Albert and his being at 34 Fairview at the same time as anyone from coming back from the waterfall?
My understanding, Colin arrived later on to just see his cousin's birthday. He didn't stay that long, maybe an hour, a little over an hour. And as he was leaving, I think he ran into his aunt and uncle as his ride had arrived out front and left at sometime around 12:10 a.m.
Here comes 1210 back into the chat.
Mhm.
Now it's just his ride. His ride, if it was Allie McCabe. Her parents are in the house. Wouldn't Allie come in, say hi to her parents, maybe give a little happy birthday to little Bri? Right? Maybe a little happy birthday to her cousin.
What they're going to do to this guy in summation will be must-see TV, because this is just, if you think it's bad now, wait till they can think about it and marshal it with everything else.
Right. And Nicole Albert said, in the foyer, that's where she came across Colin, and the stories are all different. And the ride was there. It's not Allie, Jen McCabe's daughter.
No, the
That
ride.
information
cousin.
that you had prior to your interview with
Bri.
Colin Albert?
We knew Colin wasn't at the house. The timing was provided by Colin.
And at any point in time in your investigation, what, if any, evidence did you ever receive that Colin Albert was at 34 Fairview at the same time as Mr. O'Keefe or the defendant?
They didn't interview Colin for 18 months.
He,
So what time did Colin provide them with?
nothing. Everything he's doing is regurgitating what other people told him, and he's just stating it as fact. I mean, if they're going to do this charade, they might as well do the charade the right way and have him say that I was told by Jennifer McCabe that Colin left at that time. But he's just stating as like literal fact these things that he was told because he wants the jury to believe a certain story, and he's not asserting the information as coming from any hearsay source. He's just stating it as literal fact. This is pathetic.
Based on Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone location data using his Waze app, Colin Albert is leaving around like 12:10 a.m. Mr. O'Keefe is
Based on what?
about a half a mile away at 12:20 a.m.
I'd be direct on this. But what else did you learn from John O'Keefe's Waze app? And then you know what he's going to say? I don't recall.
Mm-hmm. Right. I don't have that data in front of
I
me.
do recall Colin Albert leaving at 12:10.
12:10.
That he remembers.
Mm-hmm. Of course, because that's the script.
So they did not cross paths.
There you go. That's fact.
Mr. Jackson was asking about some people as far as interviews or later in October or so of 2022 or beyond. You were given 5 names as far as Brian Albert Jr., Julie Nagel, Ms. Kent, Ms. Fabiano, Ms. Alba, and Ms. Levinson, and Colin Albert, correct?
Yes.
And then you were asked about 3 people that you had interviewed, and then were asked if there was only one person left, that being Colin Albert, correct?
Correct.
Does that math match up as far as 5 people, 3 given, and only 1 person not interviewed?
No.
Now, with reference to Ms. Kent, Ms. Fabiano, and Ms. Alba, to your knowledge, have they been interviewed at any point in time?
No.
Or why not?
They weren't present for when the adults had arrived back from the waterfall.
So they had left 34 Fairview like Colin Albert prior to the waterfall people coming in.
Objection.
Sustained is that point.
As if it's all fact.
What, if any, information did you have with regards to the whereabouts of Ms. Kent, Ms. Fabiano, Ms. Alba, and Colin Albert in relation to 34 Fairview and the arrival of people from the waterfall?
They had left the residence.
So you interview them anyway, just to see what they would say.
With respect to Colin Albert, why was it that he was interviewed and not Ms. Kent, Ms. Fabiano, and Ms. Alba?
Here it comes.
Colin was falsely accused of
Objection.
This is outrageous. Can we go to sidebar?
Wow.
Can you answer that same question Mr. Lally asked you differently?
No, it's not
Yes,
proper.
ma'am.
Okay, go ahead. Answer it.
Colin was the subject of a third-party culprit
Oh.
where
What?
This
Now he's
is-
going to start throwing legal terminology out there?
all
He's
be
gonna-
stricken, all of it.
that had no evidence to back that up.
Objection.
I'm going to allow that.
She's allowing that. You know why I need you on the show with me is so that I don't feel completely gaslit, like I'm the one who's completely
This is
wrong
so
here.
outrageous. This guy has no firsthand information. So it's one thing to say, you know, we were aware that there were allegations of Colin being this, but he's basically saying that something bad happened to Colin. None of it's true. It's false. He's innocent. And so who the hell is he to say this?
Wow.
And he's
she's-
also, by the way, Lally is so stupid because this witness has so many problems already. And despite all of that, he's still trying to stick a dagger in Karen Reed by saying how guilty she is, but I'm fair. And all he's doing is showing he's so biased for the prosecution that he can't even tell this story straight. This is hurting them, not helping them.
And bringing Colin Albert back into the conversation on redirect, which is now opening the door for recross all about Colin Albert.
I mean, they're
is he
gonna
really that stupid?
they're gonna
Lally?
sum up and say, even after this guy was discredited every which way till next Tuesday, he still had to get his digs in against Karen Reed, despite having no firsthand knowledge. That's how much he wants to nail her for this, even now, after all of this.
Wow.
He has no remorse in anything he's done.
Nope. He's just sorry that he's been caught.
Yep.
And that somebody went to Yannetti went to his sister's school yesterday
Can't believe that
and embarrassed her.
he thinks this helps. All he's doing is showing how awful a witness this guy is and how biased he is. This guy's not a real detective. He's out to get Karen Reed, period.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
That had no evidence to back that up, that he was involved whatsoever. My office and myself felt the need to interview Colin, sit him down and get his story, his facts of that evening. So that's why we interviewed him at that date and time later on.
Whoa, wait.
18 months later.
Wait a minute. There's no evidence against Colin. He had nothing to, which is maybe the case. I'm not right or wrong, but he's saying we had no reason to believe he did anything, zero evidence to believe he did anything. So what we decided all those months later, since there was no evidence against him, that the best thing to do would be to formally interview him and document that to make sure we, protect the record that Colin had nothing to do with this. That makes no sense at all.
And here's the thing. Karen Reed brought up Colin's name when she's on that body cam with Yuri Buchanan in June of 2022. When they rearrest her, she says, we're all in on the same joke, right? Brian Albert and Colin beat him up. And so in June of 2022, they know that he's being accused by Karen, but they don't interview him until when? 18 months?
And I wouldn't be surprised if that comes out on recross as a basis to say, is this why you were aware of public allegations against him, and only then did you go basically, in essence, concoct his innocence story and document that he left? Because his original report that he got from Chris and Julie Albert, they just whitewash him altogether. Mm-hmm. I mean, the deal back then was Colin was never there. But then when it became apparent that people knew Colin was there, they had to do the next best thing, which was prepare a report that says, yeah, Colin was there, but he left within 5 minutes. He had nothing to do with anything.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Colin left before John got there, as Ali said.
I mean, this is so transparent what they're doing.
When you say we, do you recall who was present with you when you interviewed Colin Albert?
Trooper Zachary Clark.
Are you aware of Sergeant Buchanan getting screenshots from both Colin Albert and from Miss Allie McCabe in relation to text communications they had about picking up Colin Albert from 34 Fairview on January 29th?
Yes.
You know what? Now that Lally's doing this and talking about
we're asking some questions about
the timeline about, I mean, the texts with Allie are going to relate to Allie picking them up at a time. And, there's an issue as to whether they're real or not. I'm not going to, whatever.
Yeah, screenshots.
But if you recall on Cross, he was asked if he had any interest in looking at McCabe's phone for the Life 360 app to verify. And back then he was like, no, there's nothing to do that. If he's getting these messages from Allie and Colin, that would have been the time, if he was an honest broker in what he was doing, to go back and like cross-reference and source whether that fits the Life 360. And he, of course, he didn't do it.
Why would he? He's never looking for any other suspects. Yes, I know we are behind. That's what we're doing here because Mark was kind enough to give us his time today and he had to step out for virtual court appearance. So we are a little bit behind. I hear that Tully is on the stand there. We will get there. Don't worry.
Phone, is that correct?
Yes.
And as far as any material on that phone, are you an expert when it comes to cell phone abstractions and what different material may mean within a Cellbrite extraction?
No, that's left to Trooper Garino in our office.
Are you aware of reports regarding those searches from Trooper Nicholas Garino, a Miss Jessica Hyde, and a Mr. Ian Whip?
I am aware of those, yes.
And those are people who are experts, those are people who have special knowledge or specialized knowledge as it relates to Cellbrite technology that you do not, correct?
Objection.
One of the questions sustained.
What, if
God,
any,
only Lally
knowledge,
can
are you
take
aware of,
minutes to
Trooper
establish he's not the
Garino's
cell phone
Jessica
guy.
Hyde
Let's move on.
within having the
But meanwhile, in the
perspective
beginning, he
of
said he
Cellbrite
was.
or cell phone technology that you do not have.
Objection.
This,
Allowing it under building.
May we approach?
Sure.
all right, we can catch up a little while they approach. But in the
You are-
beginning, he said that he was like very, he had taken courses in Celebrite and he knew all about it. And he tried to say
We
that he was
pulled-
a Celebrite.
Yes, we
Sort
pulled
of
phone
expert.
records in 2 days. Well, he's
Steve,
great.
Yes.
Let me rephrase that just a little. As far as you're aware that Trooper Nicholas Garino, Miss Jessica Hyde, and Mr. Ian Whiffen have all looked at Ms. McCabe's Cellbrite and extraction information, correct?
Yes.
And their knowledge, their specialized knowledge in regard to those areas exceeds
Is
your
it
own,
not
correct?
proper?
Yes.
No, he's going to leave it there. Okay. I thought he was going to go deeper.
Now, as far as your conversations with Kevin Albert, how would you characterize those in relation to this investigation?
Drunken?
They had nothing to do with this
What?
Inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
investigation. Like I said, we were working a cold case together. We also work on other cases together that, unattended deaths that I'll respond to a potential suicide or an overdose in the town of Canton that I'll respond to. But the topic of our conversations were in regards to the cold case or unresolved case that we're working together.
You know what's going to be a cold case? This one, when this trial's over. This one's going to be a cold case too. So
Yeah.
seems that that's your specialty, sir.
Yep.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Presenting the documents I did the other day. Recognize that?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
I do.
What do you recognize that?
Text communication with Kevin Albert.
And sir, if I could direct your attention to debate stamp pages of 2600 and 2601.
Yes, sir.
Now, in regard to activities on that particular date, you had indicated that you had conversations with Kevin Albert about working a cold case from the town of Canton, correct?
Yes.
And specifically on that date, where did the two of you go?
I recall going down to the Cape to at least interview at least one person of interest.
And that was down in the town of Sandwich, to be specific, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, in reference to Kevin Albert leaving his badge in your car, do you recall that?
I do.
If I could direct your attention to page 2602.
Why you want to bring this up again? Show the guy's a drunken idiot losing his gun and leaving his badge in your
And
car?
what if any text communication is contained on
You
that
can't
page as
clean
far
this
as,
up. It is what it
you,
is.
Yeah,
asking Kevin
leave
Albert
it.
any questions about his address?
After I informed Kevin Albert I had located his badge, I follow up. What's your address? I will drop it off after the gym.
Oh, we're not friends because I don't know your home
Asking his
address.
because you don't know
But
his
drunk
address.
guy,
Correct.
drunk cop, I have your badge and gun, but I don't know
Yeah.
where you live. So what do
My
I do?
patrol car, because we got hammered and then we drove home and you forgot your badge.
How
And
do
then he
you
said,
weigh?
leave it in my mailbox.
How
But
do
now,
you weigh the pros and cons of if I ask this question, I'm going to give up that he's a drunk idiot who left his gun in my car, but then it'll also establish I don't know his home address, so maybe they're not close. I'm going to go with that. Idiot.
right,
Just
because
a complete.
before
idiot.
he said, leave it in my mailbox, he gave me his address. So we weren't really that tight.
Oh my God.
We don't have close family ties. We're just,
This guy is just
Sustained.
dumb.
Why are you asking for his address?
I've never been to his house and I don't know where he lives.
Oh,
Mm.
well,
You're so close with him that you don't know where his house is, correct?
Objection.
Ah.
That's going to fall like a lead balloon.
I approach just to retrieve your.
This is a preview of Lally's cross-examination skills. Don't hold your breath.
Yes.
Ring videos from One Meadows Avenue.
What?
You were asking questions about
This should be interesting.
ring videos from One Meadows Avenue, Mr. O'Keefe's home, is that correct?
Yes.
To be
I
clear,
did
you
not
delete
delete
any ring
any
videos from Mr. O'Keefe's account, either on his app, on his phone, or from
Never.
the materials that you received?
I wouldn't do that. I have integrity.
Absolutely not.
Now, when you saw that there were ring videos missing from times that you expected videos to be, specifically what I'm asking about is Miss Reed or the defendant's arrival at the home after leaving Fairview Road, and Miss McCabe, Miss Roberts, and the defendant's departure from One Meadows to Fairview Road later on that morning. What did you do?
I reached out to Ring several different times. They informed me if a video is deleted, there's no digital footprint of that. It's essentially kind of gone forever.
And with respect to
That's
that
the
time
point.
frame,
That's
what, if
why
any,
you
other-
probably did that.
Huh?
I
Mhm.
said that's why you did that, Trooper, right? I mean, yeah.
They sent him a Dropbox thing that expired in 90 days. He never opened it. I mean, then the good. This is opening the door for AJ to talk about that.
Did you take to try to retrieve that video? Was there a second search warrant, sir?
Yes.
You were
Help
looking
him.
for additional information from that same ring video, correct?
Objection sustained.
What, if anything, were you looking for in that second search?
There's additional video.
Now, you were
Thanks.
asked some questions about notes
But the Chico took notes and said he already reviewed it. So he saw it. It was there.
from Trooper DeChico, correct?
Correct.
As far as that 0041 note, do you know what that means?
That just tells me it's a time.
And do you know specifically whether or not that is something that Trooper DeChico saw or something that Trooper DeChico was looking for?
That's something Trooper Chico could answer for.
He'll be called. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I may have just a moment. Your Honor.
Yes.
Report video at Canton Police.
Boy.
Sir, you were asked some questions about Sallyport video at Canton Police Station, correct?
Yes.
When you arrived at the Sallyport garage of the Canton Police Station sometime around or shortly after 5:30 p.m., correct?
Yes.
Now, that 5:30 p.m. time, is that before or after 5:07 a.m.?
After.
And
You had to think
5:07 a.m. is when the Exhibit 6, video number, I believe, 153, with the defendant backing out of the garage where you testified on Monday, you observed some damage to the taillight, correct?
Correct.
And you're aware of some other ring video from Mr. O'Keefe's house showing the defendant, Ms. Roberts and Ms. McCabe, arriving at his house, in which you can see damage to the right passenger taillight, correct?
Correct.
Are you aware of a cruiser camera video from the Canton Police Station, Police Department, specifically Lieutenant Ray, going to One Meadows Ave at 8:22 in the morning on the 29th, in which you can also observe damage to the taillight?
Objection.
Sustained is to the form.
Objection is right because we saw that dash cam video when he's coming to do the wellness check and he pulls in and it's like a cliffhanger and we're waiting. And
He
then it's
also-
just kind of, it fell off. There,
He can't give his opinion of what the video shows with a taillight that may be covered by snow. The video speaks for itself. The jury should see it. They don't need him
they
to
did
say
see it. They saw
Right.
it.
Right.
So-
So they don't need this guy to say, yeah, it shows the broken taillight I told you about. That's for the jury to decide, not this jerk.
So improper.
As far as 8:22
All right,
in
good.
the morning, what, if any, video from One Meadows Avenue are you aware of depicting the defendant's taillight?
Canton Police Department went to conduct a well-being check, and on the dash cruiser camera, you can see the back of Miss Reed's vehicle and the right taillight to be
No, you
broken
can't.
and missing pieces.
No, you
Oh,
can't.
Proper.
We saw it.
And as far as your time at the home in Dayton, the vehicle, the defendant's vehicle was towed from that location on that day, correct?
Correct.
And what, if any, video are you aware of from that driveway, which depicts the right rear passenger side taillight of the defendant's vehicle?
Yeah, as the vehicle's being put on the tow truck, you can make out that there's some pieces missing.
Some.
Can't say this.
So you're saying that officer Officer Barrows from Dayton PD is a liar?
There have been cases, again, in New York, but Massachusetts is more liberal than New York, and that's hard to do with like criminal procedure stuff, that have been reversed when a police officer gives his opinion on what a video shows, and those cases have been reversed on the concept that it's usurping the role of the fact finder to determine what the video shows. And you can certainly say that there's a video and that's taken from the house. And, can you see the taillight in the video? Yes. But when he starts telling the jury what it shows, he's now veering into fact finder role, which is not his role. I mean, this is totally improper.
I remember looking at that video myself. I'm going, what? You can't see anything. It's covered in snow.
It does look like snow. It's certainly debatable at best for them. And he's saying it's emphatically what I saw.
Yep.
I don't know why they're not objecting, to be honest
Not
with
that
you.
I know, me too.
I
Not that
mean, in all fairness,
anybody's believing anything he's saying at this point anyway.
No, that may very well be it, that the picture speaks for itself and they'll deal with it. But I mean, to me, I would have objected to that.
Sir, if I could turn you back to those text messages with your friends, January 29th, 2022. With that time in mind, at that point in time, well, let me ask before, as far as all those other videos that we talked to, all of those videos precede your time in the Sally Port garage at 5:30 p.m. on January 29th, correct?
Correct.
Now, with reference to, you mentioned in your testimony the other day, earlier, that at some point in time later in the day or early in that evening, you had met for a debriefing with yourself and the other troopers involved in the investigation on January 29th. Is that correct?
Yes.
So fair to say the information that had been collected by yourself and the other troopers on January 29th, you had that in mind, or you were aware of that when you were involved in these text communications with your friends, correct?
Yes.
And so were you, at that time that you're texting with your friends, you had seen the defendant's vehicle?
Correct. Yes.
And you had seen the damage to the taillight, correct?
Yes.
And you were aware that Lieutenant Tully and the CERT team had conducted a search around 34 Fairview and recovered Mr. O'Keefe's sneaker and a taillight.
Objection.
Sustained as to form.
What, if anything, were you aware of in regard to Lieutenant Tully doing with the CERT team at 34 Fairview earlier that day?
Detective Lieutenant Tully and the CERT team conducted a search, discovered several pieces of broken taillight pieces, as well as Mr. O'Keefe's missing shoe.
And the shoe that Lieutenant Tully and the CERT team had retrieved, what, if anything, did you observe in relation to that and the shoe that you and Sergeant Mechanic had retrieved from the Good Samaritan Hospital?
Yeah, they were matched. They were both black Nike sneakers with the white logo.
Now, you had talked to first responders, correct?
Yes.
And that included firefighter Flamati,
Correct.
and that included Sergeant Good.
Yes.
You had done interviews with regard to Brian Albert, correct?
Yes.
Jennifer McCabe, correct?
Correct.
Matthew McCabe, correct?
Yes.
The defendant
Yes.
and other troopers from your unit had also interviewed Kerry Roberts, correct?
Yes.
So you're aware of statements that were attributed by Ms. Roberts and Ms. McCabe to the defendant as far as what she told them earlier that morning?
Yes.
And you're aware of statements that Ms. McCabe and Ms. Roberts had made to the troopers in regard to what they had observed that morning?
Yes.
Now, were you aware that both Ms. McCabe and Ms. Roberts indicated in interviews on January 29th that when they had got to 34 Fairview Road, they could not see Mr. O'Keefe's body? However, the defendant sort of bolted out of the backseat of the vehicle directly over to Mr. O'Keefe's body.
Objection.
You can ask that differently, Mr. Lally.
Why? Why does he have to
With
describe
respect to
what
the
you see?
statements from Ms. McCabe and Ms. Roberts in regard to their arrival at 34 Fairview
I
around
give up.
6 a.m. in the morning, what, if anything, stood out to you or were you aware of in relation to those statements?
Yeah, from those statements, as Miss Roberts was driving down Fairview, Miss McCabe was in the passenger seat, Miss Reed was in the back. Obviously, whiteout conditions as they're coming down like that slight hill, getting just before the left side of the property. Miss McCabe, Miss Roberts indicated that. Miss Reed said, "There he is. I see him. I see him." And Miss Reed, sorry, Miss
There's no
McCabe,
rules of
Miss
evidence in this.
Roberts didn't know
It's
what
literally
Miss
a
Reed was
free-for-all.
talking about.
It's a complete and total free for all.
This is crazy. I mean, this guy is This is just the most rampant hearsay imaginable. He knows nothing firsthand to which he's speaking of.
Nope.
He's just regurgitating what he saw on video and was told.
You know what they told him. That's it.
They stopped the car. Miss Reed ran directly over to John O'Keefe's body.
So she must have done it because she's the only one who saw his body and ran to him. So she must have done it. That's your conclusive evidence.
I can't believe he's
and even when Miss Reed had exited the vehicle, Miss McCabe and Miss Roberts still didn't know what was going on.
How do you know what
she
they
was running
knew? This is bordering on. I mean, I think
We're
we've crossed the
aware from,
insanity
your
line.
Conversation with firefighter Famati that the defendant had stated, I hit him in the presence of firefighter Famati earlier that morning.
Yes.
And were you also aware of statements the defendant made to other first responders about her being or getting into an argument with Mr. O'Keefe as she was dropping him off at 34 Fairview, indicating the last time she saw him?
Later on, subsequent interviews.
So at the time that you're
Just when you
sending
think he's
that
gonna be
communication
done.
within this group chat in the later part of the evening of January 29th.
It's really annoying to listen to. I mean, it makes you lose focus and just pray for him to be done, literally.
Your investigation with regard to Ms. Reed, the defendant, and or anyone else.
All right. So we knew the last person seen with Mr. O'Keefe alive was Miss Reed.
How do you know
we knew
that?
they
You
were
don't
traveling
know
to
that.
Fairview Road.
He knows that because he just believes what people tell him. He doesn't investigate. He just takes their word for it.
I don't know why they're not objecting to that. I mean, I don't know.
Did they fall asleep at the defense table? I don't know what's going on right now.
I mean, maybe they're bored too, and they've done so well, it doesn't matter. But in terms of just like strict protecting, I mean, this is all improper. This is crazy.
Maybe it's just going to be a mistrial, and that's just going to be that, and it'll be dismissed. Like, I don't know.
Witnesses stated they saw a SUV out front of the house. It went from one side to the other. Miss McCabe was texting John, parked behind me, things of that nature. John never went into the house.
Maybe they're just getting him like to keep talking so that he commits perjury, and then it's going to be like the cuffs are coming out.
You know what? Maybe, but I mean, letting him self-servingly say John never went in the house when that's their whole centerpiece of their argument. I don't know.
Because Jen and Matt McCabe were looking out the window the whole
And
time.
then the following morning,
I don't like this.
Miss Reed, Miss Roberts, and Miss McCabe located Mr. O'Keefe in the front lawn. I observed those injuries at the hospital. The one sneaker. Later on in the day, the
What was the
search
question?
team,
by the way?
along
I'm
with
so
Detective
far
Lieutenant.
gone. You don't have to rewind it, but he's
Yeah.
rambling in response to what question?
I don't even remember at this point.
Yep. Neither does
I
the jury.
really don't even remember what the
I
question
assure
was.
you the jury doesn't either.
They're like, we've heard about the one sneaker 10 times today because you keep trying to convince us that's the reason
Tully
you sit by a
found
car.
broken taillight pieces that matched
It's
Miss
also
Reed's
not
taillight.
helpful because he's got a perfect memory or of regurgitating all this, but anything on cross, he can't remember anything.
I think at this point it's like give him a shovel and or give him enough rope and he's gonna hang himself. Just go for it.
As well as the missing sneaker that matched Mr. O'Keefe's vehicle. Some inconsistent statements that Miss Reed had provided to Sergeant Mechanic and I.
So at the time that you made those comments, disparaging comments in regard to Ms. Reed in the context of those communications with your friends, as inexcusable, as unprofessional as those comments are, the information you had was that Ms. Reed had struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle.
Yeah, you've got to watch the form, Mr. Allen, it's sustained.
The time that you made those inexcusable and unprofessional comments, what did you believe the defendant had done to Mr. O'Keefe?
I believe, based on all the physical evidence and facts, Mr. O'Keefe got out of that
Facts.
vehicle holding that cocktail glass he walked out of the waterfall bar with.
How do they not stop this? Now we're going to get the whole story
The whole
again.
cocktail glass. So this is gonna be their whole theory of the case.
Got out of that vehicle holding that cocktail glass he walked out of the waterfall bar with. Miss Reed pulled ahead and then backed into him, struck him with her vehicle, and then left.
None of the witnesses saw her back into him.
Good thing he doesn't have tunnel vision because he's got it all figured out.
This is what he knew by the time he was texting his friends at 11 p.m.
That's why they're letting this go, I think, just to try to reemphasize that this guy had it all figured out in the first couple hours and had no interest in doing anything else. That's the only thing I can even think of why they would let this guy just ramble on with this nonsense.
Wow.
Then came back 5.5 hours later, correct?
Correct.
Nothing further.
Jackson?
Very briefly, Your Honor. So you think that your assessment, personal assessment,
Here it is.
that Karen Reed had struck this officer with a car gave you license to call her a cunt,
Objection.
I'll allow it.
right?
Based on the evidence, sir, my emotions got the best of me. So it was in poor taste. Yes, it was important. It was
Ask him about how
inappropriate
often that
juvenile, but
happened.
it was.
On July 19th, 2022,
Oh,
you
crap.
and Kevin Albert went out drinking together.
Hold on, we were back all the way back here.
Part of this investigation.
Oh, we're right behind here.
Aware of that when you were
The CERT team, along
While you're doing that, I hope he asks him about how many other cases have you gotten so emotionally upset that you just lost your cool to call, the words that we don't have to say here and all of that other stuff. And the answer has to be never, right? And then, he's not going to admit to doing this in other cases. But then on the other hand, what's so unique about her?
Right.
I
My
mean,
emotions got the best of me.
if you ask that question, you can't lose.
Right.
This officer with a car gave you license to call her a cunt,
Objection.
I'll allow it.
right?
based on the evidence, sir, my emotions got the best of me. So it was in poor taste. Yes, it was important. It was inappropriate, juvenile, but it was my emotions that gotten the best of me.
And you called her a whack job. Gave you license to call her that too.
Yes,
Gave you license to say to your friends, oh, no. She's fucked, right?
that's what I wrote.
Gave you license to say that she's a retard.
Again, another disgusting comment.
Sir, you had an agenda from moment one, did you not?
Objection.
Sustain.
Did you have an agenda?
Objection.
Sustain. Same question.
Thought it was a good one the first time.
It's a proper question. It is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with
The fact
that.
You believed personally that your narrative was she hit him with a car. You get to talk about her leaky balloon knot, right?
Objection.
Sustain.
Why?
You indicated
Your guess is as good as mine.
on
He doesn't
cross-examination
believe the explanation he's been given. He has a right to challenge it.
that you saw a video at 8:22 a.m. with some damage to Miss Reed's right rear taillight, correct?
Yes,
Date 22 before or after 5:07 a.m.?
after.
You also said that you had no idea where Kevin Albert lived, right?
Correct.
But you did say about getting his badge to him after that drunken night with him, that you just leave it in your mailbox, right?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
You did
Yes,
say
my
that.
mailbox.
Yeah. So he obviously knew where you lived.
Right.
Yes.
She
And then
likes
you
that.
said-
You see that?
There's no evidence whatsoever, your words, no evidence whatsoever. You talked about Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, Colin Albert, no evidence whatsoever that they were involved in the death of John O'Keefe, right?
Correct.
Trooper Proctor, you're the one responsible for gathering the evidence, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Right?
I am one part of a greater group of detectives that gathers evidence. I'm just one part of that unit.
Just
You're
a
the
cog
pointy
in the
end of
wheel.
spear, aren't you?
Objection.
Sustain.
You're the case officer, the lead detective, correct?
Yes,
sort of like the fox guarding the hen house, isn't it?
Objection.
Yeah.
That's sustained, Mr. Jackson. Do you have anything else?
Huh. I have a lot more, Judge, but I can't say it here.
Right.
Trooper, you are all set.
Thank you, Your
You're
Honor.
all set. You're all
Yeah.
Thank you, jurors.
Did he just say goodbye, jurors? Wait a second. Thank
Yes,
you,
yes,
jurors. Hold
yes.
on.
Jurors.
All right, Trooper, you are all set.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, jurors.
This guy,
He thanked the jurors. Have
he's
you ever
just
seen
like
that?
he's just like Jennifer. Well, Jennifer McCabe would look at them, but they're very similar in the sense that neither one of them has any self-awareness. They think they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
And he thinks by, being polite and admitting what he did to some extent that they credit what he says. And he just has no clue about anybody watching this with half a brain and who's not completely biased would dismiss everything he said and be left with the idea that there had to be some degree of a cover-up because he nailed her right away within a couple of hours. He said there was nothing else to do. It was clearly her. She said the things he said. And to tell you the truth, I am a little surprised that Jackson did not ask him, since how many homicides have you investigated in your life? And some of them have been really horrible fact patterns with like awful people, whatever, and can really just upset you and you take it home with you emotionally, yet you've never done this, what you claimed was your reason for doing this to Karen Reed today. And I imagine that he would say, I've never done it before, because it would just be even worse, I think, if he said the alternative. And
Right.
I think that would have been powerful, because his explanation for this is just, it's stupid. I was emotional, so I called her these things.
Mm-hmm. Because
That makes
I
no
knew
sense.
she did it because of all my fact finding. Look at my freeze game on point. Look at her flipping her hair. The judge.
Somebody should snap. You need to screenshot.
So we're
that.
gonna do that later.
It's gonna be a meme later.
Okay, here's Brian Tully.
Demonstrate the court and jury in the case now hearing from the truth.
How much
God
did I
save
miss?
the-
Stuff so I can
God
go back
save the
and-
Commonwealth. What?
How much did I miss of the Jackson with the end of the original cross?
The original was the part about wishing that she would kill herself.
Yeah.
A little snippet, which we can go back and watch later, unless you want to go back and watch it now while he's
No, I
testifying.
think people want to see what's live. We can watch it later. Sorry.
Yeah, watch it later.
God, they all shave their heads. It's like,
What is up
Good
there?
afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Brian Tully, Tully,
And how are you employed, sir?
with the Massachusetts State Police.
And how long have you been a member of the state police?
18 years.
And what rank or assignment do you currently have with the Mass State Police?
The rank I hold is Detective Lieutenant, and my current role is the unit commander for the Norfolk State Police Detective Unit.
And now, how long have you been, let me ask you first, as far as, how long have you been lieutenant of the state?
I was a first lieutenant in 2021, and then I
Mind if we speed this up just so we can get through all the boring
yep.
background? Lally talks so fast we can really only do 1 1/4.
Yeah, you can't go as fast.
I've been with the Norfolk State Police Detective Unit for 12 years.
And prior to and throughout the course of your work within the detective unit, the Norfolk DA's office for the state police, what, if any, specialized training have you received and or given in regard to investigations and how they come?
For the first 10 years as the rank of trooper and sergeant, I was on the homicide section of the unit. When first entering the unit, I received instruction on how to conduct homicide and death investigations. In addition to that, I attended over 200 hours of specialized training in the use of cell phones and cell phone technology in the furtherance of criminal investigations. Further on, I have now been an instructor about cell phones and cell phone technology in criminal investigations. I've taught death investigation classes around the Commonwealth, and as well as search and seizure law in Massachusetts.
Oh, really?
If I could ask you just
Search and seizure law.
your unit. If you could explain to the jury sort of what is the role and what does your unit do with respect to death investigations within Norfolk County?
So each district attorney's office has a state police detective unit assigned to it. So Mass General Law, Section 38, Section 4 says that the district attorney is in charge of all death investigations. So if someone passes away, essentially not in the presence of a doctor or the circumstances that led to their death was outside the presence of medical care, the district attorney is in charge of the investigation or their representative. And so each DA has a state police detective unit assigned to them to act as their representative. In certain jurisdictions like Boston, Worcester, and Springfield, the DAs in those counties have said that those local departments can be their representatives, but throughout the Commonwealth, the state police is the DA's representative in those death investigations.
Now, as far as assignments go, or as far as how is it that, well, as far as how an investigation is run, how is it that a call comes in? If you could take the jury through sort of from the time the call comes in, how that investigation is.
I'll talk in a typical state. Oftentimes, someone passes away, again, not in the presence of a doctor, gets found by somebody, a loved one, a friend, a passerby. They call 911, which gets routed to the local police, who respond and come to learn that someone has passed away in the circumstance. That police department will then call the troop headquarters on the state police. The state police is cut up in different troops by geographic location. Each troop duty lieutenant would have a list of who the on-call person is for the state police detective unit of jurisdiction. They would then call that trooper or sergeant directly to inform them that there's a death in a certain community and give them a telephone number to contact somebody who's directly on scene to get more information.
Now, as far as your role as sort of the supervisor or the lieutenant in charge of the unit, can you describe to the jury sort of what your role is in regard to those investigations?
So within the detective unit, we have the homicide section, a narcotics section, does narcotics investigations, and a special investigation section. So specific to the homicide section, there are certain levels of supervision. We have a sergeant assigned to the homicide section. I have an executive officer who's a lieutenant, and then me. So multiple levels of supervision specific to any of the sections, including the homicide section.
Now, turning your attention to January 29th, 2022, at some point did you become aware in the morning with regard to a death within the town of Canton?
Yes.
And what, if any, when did you become aware and how did you become aware initially of what had transpired?
Shortly after 7 a.m. that date, I received a call from Sergeant Yuri Buchanan informing me that a person by the name of John O'Keefe was found unresponsive in Canton. He was transported to Good Samaritan Hospital, where it was expected he was not to survive. Normally, I would not get a call like that, but we learned that Mr. O'Keefe was an active Boston police officer. So Sergeant Buchanan wanted to make me aware of it at that point.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
Why
why
did they do such a shitty investigation? This is
yeah.
something else I said. I mean, and you know this because you're in New York. We get our disproportionate amount of lost cops, as you know.
Yeah.
And when that happens, to say that they rally, and whether it be going to the hospital, funerals, or the detectives who investigate those crimes, they spare no resource, no expense, nothing. I mean, the cops become like an army. And this guy's telling us that this was an important death, so important that they didn't even secure a crime scene. I mean, I don't know if you remember this, but some of the testimony from way back in the beginning from one of the Canton yahoos, with the solo cups and the Stop and Shop bags,
Leaf
said they called the state police, and his testimony was at 7:30 in the morning or whatever. The state police said, "We're not coming."
Right. So we just left the crime scene unsecured. We just left because we figured they weren't coming. So we didn't want to leave a patrol car there or anything because, there was a blizzard and it was real windy.
The reality is they did treat this like, a police officer homicide case. But the problem is they did it, looking at Brian Albert more than looking at John O'Keefe.
Well, that's the police officer they were standing by.
Yep.
Agreed.
And so then what happened from there as far as your unit involved?
So as we learned more information about what was found on scene by the Canton Police Department, Trooper Proctor, who was the on-call the on-call trooper that day on the schedule.
Trooper Proctor, who was the on-call supervisor, he almost said, right? Excuse me.
He's regurgitating. I mean, he's like got a script. I mean, he keeps closing his eyes as he's
screwed up.
I mean, I don't know if that's just a mannerism, but it feels like, again, another
he's trying
script.
to remember what he's supposed to say.
Yeah, and it's hard. He knows everyone's watching. It's hard.
Panic responded to Canton Police to begin the investigation, and they would keep me updated as they learned more information.
Now, as far as your unit is concerned, what, if any, role does your unit have, or what, if any, jurisdiction does your unit have with relation to any kind of death, whether it be homicide, suicide, unattended death, within the confines of Norfolk County?
We have exclusive jurisdiction by law, but the law also suggests that we need to work with the local police departments as well.
And so how is it that typically in a typical investigation that your unit would work in conjunction with the local police departments in relation to a death investigation?
Their detective unit would be involved if they have one, and some departments in Norfolk County don't. They would stand by to wait for our arrival. There'd be constant communication between the responding trooper and the detective on scene about things that need to be done prior to our arrival, but essentially ask for or wait for our guidance on what to do next.
And as far as certain investigations go, are there decisions sometimes that are made with regard to your involvement or maybe your unit not being involved in a death investigation?
Yes.
And how are those determinations made and who makes those?
It falls to either the person who's on call or their supervisor. We don't respond to all of those calls. So a police officer may call and say that a woman in her 80s has passed away in bed overnight. Her primary care doctor has said that she's struggled with cancer or treatment, and that doctor is willing to sign a death certificate. In those circumstances, it's not suspicious. It's not a suicide or a fatal opiate overdose. We would not respond in that case. That would be one that we would decline. In other circumstances, we may get a call and then learn that the person's going to survive. And so we will not respond. We typically will mirror what the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. If they're involved, then we'll definitely be involved.
Now, turning to that point, as far as the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner is concerned, in any sort of death investigation that your unit is involved in, what, if any, involvement or communication do troopers from your unit or yourself have with the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner?
We have constant communication. The law that I cited also says that the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner has exclusive jurisdiction as well to determine the cause and manner.
We call them and hotbox them to change results and have conference calls and show them pictures to make sure we can get a better classification all the time.
Totally not unusual that Proctor would be texting with his cohorts about contacting the ME and trying to strong arm her, because we do it all the time.
And send each other texts basically accusing each other of blowing it by, you know, your rookie move and you should have done this. And
you should have let me do it. I would have had it. I would have done it.
So we work closely hand in hand to figure out the circumstances that led to the death.
Now, as far as working close hand in hand with the medical examiner's office, what does that sort of typically entail?
Takes a turn of phone calls. We'll call in and speak to the intake person or the on-call doctor to tell them what we've learned or what we're observing. We forward reports in every case to the doctors. They understanding at least what we learned in the first 24 hours. Doctors will often reach back out to us asking for scene photographs, more reports, ask questions. And in instances where it's a suspicious death, we will send an investigator to the autopsy to stand with the doctor to make observations and answer any questions for the doctor.
Right. And Yuri called the ME and told him at 10:40 a.m. that he thought it was a domestic.
he did.
Now, as far as the determinations that are ultimately come to by the medical examiner,
Cue the sirens.
He's laughing.
He thinks it's funny.
He knows.
He's trying so hard not to laugh.
Lieutenant, as far as any determinations that are made with reference to either cause or manner in any instance with medical examiner, what, if any, role do you or anyone from your unit have with regard to that decision by the medical examiner?
We have little to no role outside of providing information.
And as far as the determination specifically, whether it's manner or cause, what, if any, impact does that have with regard to any death investigation that you do?
Well, the cause will give us a big incident. So we want to know if the person died of a heart attack or if they died of a gunshot wound. That's big when it comes to then making charging decisions about circumstances. So it's important to learn the cause, and to get the doctor's input on the manner is also helpful.
How is this helpful to Lally in light? Basically, Tully is giving the jury a tutorial on why it was so critical for Proctor to bully the ME to call it a homicide.
Right.
He's leading with his chin yet again.
Chin up, everyone. Chin up.
If the manner is found to be undetermined, would that impact what you learned through the rest of the course of your investigation as far as charging goes?
No, that determination by the OCME is often in the early stages of investigation. And as we learn more information, the circumstances can change.
And the determination that is made by the medical examiner, that's strictly from a medical perspective, correct?
They can also change if you pressure them and, taint their opinion, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With regards to January 29th, 2022, when this call that was initially received, Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Mechanic then essentially respond to the Canton Police Department first. Is that correct?
Yes.
And as far as your role as it pertains to this or any other investigation, how much involvement do you have, or how are you sort of apprised of what's going on?
Sergeant Mechanic, in this case, and in typical cases, he's keeping me updated by telephone, so I can supervise from anywhere with my cell phone. He's giving me updates about what he's learning. We'll discuss what the next step should be. And that's what transpired over the morning of January 29th.
Is he updating you on
What's the
what
morning of January
Mr.
29th?
Proctor thinks of Karen Reed's rear end and things like that? Or that doesn't go, I think that didn't go that high.
She's the C word, and yeah.
Right. Updating.
He's gonna laugh again. He's trying so hard not to laugh. It's like an SNL skit where
Over the
they
course of the morning of January 29th, what if any conversations did you have with relation to Canton Police Department's involvement or ongoing or further involvement with regard to this investigation?
I had spoken with the acting chief at the time, the current chief, the chief at the time, Kenneth Berkowitz, about the involvement in the Canton Police Department. We talked about the homeowner at 34 Fairview and his relationship to his department. And because of the appearance of a conflict, we had made a decision that the Canton Police was going to take a step back from the investigation and that state police would do the investigation without them.
it's just an appearance of a conflict, not an actual conflict.
So, but notice how he says take a step back. How about recuse? You know,
Mhm.
no contact. Literally, when you say step back, you leave that gray where some of these other guys say, well, I thought that meant just no interviews. He's giving very wishy gray instead of a black and white appearance. We're out.
Yep. With reason, I'm sure. He'll be smacked on the butt on cross.
Now, as far as that appearance of a conflict or step back, as you termed it, what was your understanding at that time as far as what the role of Canton Police would be?
Really to provide support. So anytime we're in a local community, we need the support of local police. If we're going to start knocking on doors, we want to make sure they're aware or present. They have resources in town, whether it be lights or barriers that we may need to access. So I would define it as a support role.
Buffer zones.
Now, with respect to those conversations you mentioned that you had yourself and what the then current chief, Kenneth Berkowitz, who, if anyone else, was involved in those conversations?
The district attorney.
That would be Mr. Morrissey, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that abnormal for him to be involved in conversations in regard to the police department and any sort of appearance of conflict?
No, it's not abnormal for him to be involved.
And as far as his involvement in his conversations, as far as you're aware, did they evolve or were they any greater or less than the conversations that you had with Chief Berkowitz?
No, they were the same conversations.
Let me ask you this, Lieutenant. At some point over the course of this case or at some point over the course of this investigation, did you become aware of certain text messages on Trooper Proctor's personal phone?
Yes.
And upon your being made aware of those text communications, what, if anything, did you as a supervisor, what, if anything, did you do?
I had a long discussion with him about the content and nature of them. I expressed my displeasure as unprofessionalism and the content of them. And then I reported up my chain of command.
He expressed his
Was he
displeasure.
admonished in any way?
He was by me at that conversation. Yes.
Homicide.
Again, just sort of in general terms, you're familiar with this investigation as you're supervising the unit that was investigating it, correct?
Yes.
Now, is it typical practice in conducting homicide or death investigations as far as civilian witnesses are concerned to seize their personal cell phone?
It's not uncut. It happens. Yes.
And is that a practice that occurs with respect to every single witness in every single case?
No.
And so what are sort of the parameters or what would be some of the reasons that certain civilian witnesses' cell phones will be seized versus others?
Well, you use the word seize. So when I think of the word seize, I'm thinking in the legal context where I think there's probable cause to believe, more likely than not, there's evidence of the crime I'm investigating held within the data of that phone. Sometimes if we believe there's information on the phone, we may ask for consent for that one specific thing or for that one specific reason. But outside of that, unless I have that belief there's data on a phone, I won't ask for.
You just cut out for a sec. What'd you say?
I said he's recognizing the point we were talking about the other day about, taking someone's phone is a seizure that requires a degree of suspicion, under the Fourth Amendment. And the testimony of Yuri and Proctor was that we basically said, we're taking your phone because we're going to get a warrant, but they never articulated any basis to have, probable cause to literally take her phone. And they never established that she consented. They didn't. It's a document that she signed saying I consent. All you got was Proctor saying I saw her passcode, which frankly just sounds more creepy than anything else, as if he's looking over her shoulder and sidling up to her or something.
And then we find out later he's looking for nudes. So
Right.
All fits.
Yep.
But, he got reprimanded.
Yep.
Consent or seize a phone and pursue a search warrant.
Now, are you aware of certain cell phones that were either seized or granted access via consent in relation to this investigation?
Yes.
And specifically, Mr. O'Keefe's phone was taken into custody, correct?
Yes.
And the defendant's phone was taken into custody on January 29th as well.
Yes.
Now, as far as civilians, there were two civilian witnesses whose phones were given via consent and then extracted, that being a Jennifer McCabe and a Kerry Roberts, correct?
Yes.
And so why was it that Ms. McCabe's phone and Ms. Roberts' phone was taken versus some other witness in the case?
Well, they had information relative to the actions of Ms. Reed and the communications with specifically those two individuals on the morning of the 29th. So we wanted to memorialize them and save them.
Now, sir, with respect to your involvement on January 29th, where and when did you sort of leave and become involved in the investigation beyond sort of a supervisor?
Shortly after noontime, we had learned more information that necessitated a broader search. So I had reached out to Lieutenant Kevin O'Hara with the State Police CERT team to assist with processing of a scene. And so since we were going to be processing a scene, it was prudent for me to leave my house, dig out, and drive to Canton.
And sir, with respect to, you mentioned dig out from your house. What were the conditions like around the time that you were leaving?
There was probably 8 to 10 inches at the house. So I had to dig out my driveway and the large snowbank at the end of the driveway that's caused by the plow in order to get a vehicle out and head to Canton.
And where is it first that you were headed to?
I first went to the Canton Police Department to talk to Chief Berkowitz and wait for the arrival of the CERT team, and then to 34 Fairview.
And as far as the CERT team was concerned, if you can, explain to the jury sort of the process from your perspective, from your end, as far as activating the CERT team, what it is that they do and why you had requested.
We work with Lieutenant O'Hara frequently. I called him on a cell phone, and the CERT team is out of a different chain of command. So the State Police is a very paramilitary organization with specific chains of commands with different structures. So I reached out to him and asked for his assistance with this investigation.
Not
He had to
really
get further approval up his chain of command, mostly for over.
Paramilitary, when a bunch of bald guys in suits who have truth-telling problems and whatnot, and you're basically saying we're a paramilitary organization. I mean, read the room, guy. Jeez.
People come for the comedy.
I mean, but that's like a cell phone, right? Why would you do that?
So many questions
All right.
about why they're doing any of this.
Time and to pay the troopers to come out. That would be the way that I would make a formal request to the CERT team.
And so the initial phone call that you made to Lieutenant O'Hara, you don't have the power or the authority to sort of direct him to dispatch his team and go to 34 Fairview, correct?
Correct.
And so as far as that initial phone call that you made to Lieutenant O'Hara, do you know about what time of the day that was?
It was about 2 in the afternoon.
And what was the purpose of sort of that initial phone call that you made to Lieutenant O'Hara?
To give him a heads up, because it needs to be a conversation up my chain of command. So above me, there's a detective captain and a major. My major needs to really talk to his major to make a formal request. But I wanted Lieutenant O'Hara to be aware of the request was coming so that he could at least start polling his people to see who was available to respond to Canton.
And with respect to the weather, if you could just in general terms describe for the jury sort of what you observed as far as the weather conditions on that day.
I observed blizzard-like conditions. It was snowing heavily, windy, low visibility.
John, may I approach?
Yes.
Good, we can skip a little bit.
My dog is not a German Shepherd. I have 2 dogs, actually, a lab and a rescue mutt. So they get loud when kids come home from school or people are outside. So no, their names are not Chloe and they're not German Shepherds. And they are known to come in and say hello from time to time. So we'll see.
Oh. All right, I'm going to step away for a second. I'm going
Do
to
you
leave you in
recognize those,
charge.
sir?
I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
They are certified records from the U.S. Department of Commerce out of Asheville, North Carolina, for weather reports from Norwood Memorial Airport, Massachusetts, for the dates of January 2022 and February 2022.
So for the entirety of the months of January 2022 as well as February 2022, correct?
Yes.
And are you familiar with the Norwood Municipal Airport and where it is in relation to the town of Canton?
Yes.
Where is it?
It's the next town over.
And as far as, are you familiar with Neponset Street in Norwood?
I am.
And does Neponset Street also carry into the town of Canton as well?
Yes.
And with regard to 34 Fairview Road, about how far away is 34 Fairview from Neponset Street?
From the Ponza Street, it's a mile, 2 miles.
So relatively same geographic area as far as the Norwood Municipal Airport and 34 Fairview Road.
Yeah, I would say as the crow flies from 34 Fairview to Norwood Municipal Airport, that's probably 3 miles.
Yes, my dog's
With
bark.
regard to
And there's people
the
outside, like
records
everyone else
recorded,
is except Brian.
from your memory of those dates and those times in January and February of 2022, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what the weather was like, temperature-wise as well as precipitation?
Yes.
I love that question.
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Come off the seat to introduce the minutes.
Now do you want to say anything?
We need more proof of how much snow there was when these guys searched. Hines and Morgie. Definitely not Hines. Can tell you that.
Did I miss anything?
We're introducing weather report records. If you,
Oh,
we're going to find out how much snow was at the Norwood Municipal Airport, so Lally can say how when they found the items under however
So,
many
Lieutenant,
feet of snow,
at some point you were
it's all legit, I guess.
so we waited until day 23 to get the official weather records in, because if we did this on day 1, he wouldn't have had to ask every single witness, right?
Yep. Or maybe
So
O'Hara, the guy who found it, might have been the right witness for this. But, look, what do we know? They have, I guess you don't
I
need a
mean,
medical examiner either. It's
no. Oh, is that the dinging on your end or my end? That's not me.
that one was mine. Yeah, that's a
Okay.
text. I have like 27 Apple devices here, and I must have left one. Well, you know how it is. Once you get like 2 Apple things that communicate, you have to
Yeah.
get you're sucked in for life because they all have to.
I think you have more devices than they found in Human's home.
Oh my God.
About 350
not
cell phones,
believe-
Palm Pilots, hard drives, soft drives, all kinds of drives.
I can't tell you how many devices we have here. It's crazy.
respond to 34.
Probably why our home internet sucks.
Yeah.
And so, Lieutenant, at some point you respond to 34 Fairview Road. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do you recall about what time it was that you arrived there?
5:30 p.m.
And when you arrived there,
30.
who, if anyone else from the state police, preceded your arrival?
There was at least 2 members of the CERT team present, including Lieutenant O'Hara.
And if you recall, where were they located in relation to the residence?
They were directly in front of the residence.
Now, as far as their search was concerned, how was a determination made, or who, if anyone, made a determination as far as where they were going to search?
So typically when I work with Lieutenant O'Hara, I kind of give him direction. So in this case specifically, I learned from Sergeant Buchanan that Mr. O'Keefe was found in an area between the flagpole and the fire hydrant. So we concentrated that area. And so I talked to Lieutenant O'Hara that this is going to be our parameters. And he instructed his people how to deploy or to that area.
Deploy? Are we storming the beaches at Normandy? I mean, what? So
well,
someone,
Albert's house is Omaha Beach, and the Asian one that we heard about is Utah Beach, apparently,
or
because they were there
Pearl
a day or two late or whatever it was. But
right. So he's somewhere between the fire hydrant and the flagpole, but we don't really know because nobody took measurements or a photo or a chalk outline or well, I mean,
because
chalk in the snow. What am I thinking?
Well, but there was no crime scene. This is precisely the point. If they had a crime scene, they would know exactly where to go. And
they are a paramilitary organization, so they were deploying as they parachuted in to the lawn at 34 Fairview.
They stormed out of the duck boats, right, onto the Albert lawn with shovels.
And look, there is nothing, just let me there is nothing funny about this whatsoever, except sometimes we need to make jokes because we're going to cry. Like the fact that this is still going on after 23 days and the shock and horror that I am feeling about this whole entire orchestration.
Well, what's interesting too. So I go to Boston a lot for all kinds of reasons, but so when I was there a couple times ago, very close to Canton, I just, for the hell of it, I said, I need to see this place, and did a drive-by. I mean, it's 5 minutes away.
You're a grief tourist.
Yeah, no, but I'll tell you what, and the jury went there, so this is potentially powerful for them. The pictures that they have in evidence are a little bit misleading. The front lawn is tiny. It's actually, it doesn't look so small in the pictures, but that grass in the front where the flagpole is to the curb, I don't know how they measured it, but it's not big. And those windows, the famous windows where, no one heard what was going on, they are so close to where the crash site would have had to have been that I think anyone would say it's almost impossible to believe that they could not have heard it from up there. It's really small.
They could have had their minds made up after that visit, after that field trip. They could have been like, okay, what? Nobody came out?
They went so early. I don't think they even maybe were aware of the ultimate issue, but I'm sure they can at least, when they deliberate, say, do you remember going there and how tiny that place was? Shockingly smaller than the photos they've introduced.
Yeah.
Now, sir, as far as beyond sort of directing, as far as an area is concerned, what, if any, other involvement do you typically have when it comes to the search team and how they conduct their search?
They're professionals with expertise in that. So essentially, I just point them in the direction, and it's up to them to figure out how to deploy it and get the mission done.
It's a
So
mission.
what, if any, involvement do you have as far as when they begin and how many people?
They got a
involved?
gold star for, finding the
Awesome
tail.
consultation with Lieutenant.
Yeah.
Presidential commendation is coming next.
Mm-hmm. Mission Impossible.
O'Hara, but it's really his call to make.
By the way, if you were just talking about taillight pieces, if you were the DA, wouldn't you have an expert on either from Lexus or an auto mechanic or somebody in accident reconstruction, somebody to explain how a light, if hitting a human body dead on at 20 miles an hour at this speed, made of that material, would be capable of shattering?
Well, can we expect one?
I wouldn't expect anything from these people, but seems to me that some kind of I mean, I don't know this literally, but these accident reconstruction people from the feds, I would almost bet the farm that at least one of them, given all their different expertise, is going to say that one of the reasons that I believe, in my expert opinion, that this doesn't make sense is that the level of force from a polycarbonate light hitting a human body, it's a thud, not a and I mean, you go out and look at your car taillight. I mean, you try to punch it as hard as you can. It's not going to move, but you might break your hand.
Right.
And he has you heard today from Proctor, he has no injuries, bruises or anything. And this thing is shattered in 40 pieces. Doesn't make any sense.
It exploded. I mean,
Doesn't make any sense.
As far as this particular search on January 29th, you know how many members of the search team eventually responded and how the search was conducted?
There were 7 members. Most, if not all, had typical snow shovels, and they used those shovels to systematically go through the snowbank that was in front of 34th Fairview within these 2 parameters.
And over the course of, now as far as where they were searching, can you describe sort of the road conditions as far as snow removal had concerned, or where the precipitation amounts were concentrated with respect to the road?
So the road was only plowed really right down the middle. Barely 2 vehicles could get by at a time. Tanks on either side of the road were protruding into.
Ironically enough, this O'Hara, who is like this guy's doppelganger. It's kind of weird, right? If you didn't know any better, wouldn't you think this was O'Hara? They look the same. And he's going to put us through 30 minutes of the same regurgitated speech that O'Hara gave. Why is he doing this?
I think he wants to run out the clock. Maybe till the end of the day. I mean, he has to know he's lost the jury by now, right? I mean, is he that not self-aware, Lally, that he's not looking at them? They're looking at the ceiling. They're twiddling their thumbs. They're probably have headphones in, listening to music. Like, I don't even know how he could continue.
I mean, can you imagine him trying a less interesting case? I mean, he can't get the attention of a jury on about as interesting a criminal case as there is. Yeah, he's the commenter is probably right. He's clueless and probably has no self-awareness.
Yeah. All right. Back to Tully. Lully and Tully.
Lulling to sleep, Tully.
Yeah.
Tully the lullier to sleep.
The road. So that was kind of the snow setup. Our cruisers were just kind of buried in snowbanks a little bit down the road as we excavated this.
And sir, as far as this search was concerned, what, if any, information did you provide to Lieutenant O'Hara as far as items being searched for, or what was he directed to be looking for?
There were 2 items specifically. We were looking for potential pieces of a taillight of a vehicle and a shoe.
And as far as a shoe and potential pieces of a taillight, where?
Relative to the shoe, when Sergeant Buchanan and Trooper Proctor responded to Good Samaritan Hospital and collected the clothing of Mr. O'Keefe, they realized that there was only 1 shoe present at the hospital. They had contacted the Canton EMS and other people who cared for him, and they'd learned that a shoe wasn't removed at the scene, and that when Canton Fire and EMS arrived, Mr. O'Keefe only had 1 shoe on. So it was important to locate that second shoe. Relative to the taillight, we'd gotten information that witnesses stated that Miss Reed's vehicle had a broken taillight. And so we were looking for evidence of it being broken at that location.
And with respect to the search that was conducted by Lieutenant O'Hara and members from the search team, where was that in relation to either the roadway or the front lawn of 34 Fairview?
As we were excavating this, or as they were excavating this snowbank in front of it, we realized that the snowbank protruded about 3 feet into the roadway. So as they were moving this first part of the snowbank, we're essentially shoveling the road. And so as they continued on there, they would then hit the curb area.
And as far as beyond the curb area, as far as grass in the front lawn, was the search team members from your observations able to go beyond the curb into the front lawn area?
No, they're having difficulty shoveling with plastic snow shovels onto the lawn, from the lawn.
And Your Honor, may I approach the witness? Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Lieutenant Tully, with respect to the search team in their search, what, if anything, did you do to document and memorialize their efforts as far as any items that were recovered?
I took photographs of items that were eventually found in place and documented them in a report, and they were collected in evidence bags.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
But when there was 2 inches of snow, they couldn't find the sneaker. But now there's a whole snowbank, and there's the sneaker.
In the place before you.
Well, this, unfortunately for them, is not the evidence that reveals itself.
Yes. I mean, it was a black sneaker on white snow, so
Can you
it would
believe
not be easy to spot in daylight.
I mean, like those 2 guys who are like, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, Bukakic and Proctor both use the exact same language that the evidence revealed itself. And they don't think the jury's going to say that you guys are just so full of shit the way you talk, that it's clear that this is so contrived.
Yeah, that you practiced. My memory's exhausted. You haven't been watching the trial though, right? They're not supposed to watch the trial, right? They're not supposed to be privy to any testimony that occurred before they testify. But, his memory was exhausted. That was another great line.
Yep.
Oh, good. Are we going to see something on the big screen, Bev?
Have exhibit 11
Oh, here we go.
for you. If I could ask, first of all, do you recognize what's up on the screen as exhibit 111?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that to be?
The front of 34 Fairview Road in Canton and the flagpole I previously mentioned.
And if you could, using the laser pointer, just direct your attention to what, if anything, is significant to observe in this exhibit.
So this picture was taken to memorialize this piece of red plastic here.
This piece.
Can you see that,
when the
Mark?
jury looked at the photo, I do see it, but this
But it has to
piece-
be described for the record. Yeah.
Again,
How about the piece of red and the white to the left center of the?
If you could, using the laser pointer.
Yeah. And he should make him say, can you describe that in words for the record? Record's a mess.
direct your attention to
Total
what, if
mess.
anything, is significant to observe it.
It's that same previously mentioned red plastic. The purposes of the multiple photographs, I'll take one as overalls, and as I get closer, I'll take more photographs to get better context.
I mean,
These photographs of these items, were they taken?
You've seen
items
all
that
this.
you're photographing?
the snow is crusty. It's icy. It doesn't look like it's freshly shoveled.
Yes, this piece in particular, a CERT team member, as he was removing the snow with the shovel, had picked up this piece of plastic with it. I asked him to place it back where he found it, where it approximately was, so that I can memorialize it in place.
So it was picked up and you asked him to put it back where he found it, and he did so.
Yes.
This gentleman, if I could have exhibit 117. And again, Lieutenant, you recognize what's up on the screen? It's 117.
Yes.
What do you recognize that?
Members of the CERT team doing their excavation.
Or the estimable Miss Gilman, right? Miss
Yeah.
Gilman, in next picture. If he just stopped saying that in front of every time he asked for an exhibit to put up over the course of this trial, they'd probably lop off 6 hours already.
Oh, yeah.
Just saying, Miss Gilman, could you go to photograph number this?
And repeating the answer in his next question is always a big one too.
Of the snowbank.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have exhibit 120.
The excavation of the snowbank, like they brought in a backhoe.
Again, sir, do you recognize what's up on the screen? That's exhibit 120.
Yes.
And if you could, using the laser pointer.
There's the sneaker. There it is. I mean, it's camouflaged, but we can see it now.
Direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, is significant you observe in this photograph.
A black Nike sneaker with a white sole that was recovered in the snowbank.
He's been looking at social media because there's been a lot of posts on social media about how this sneaker looks like it has a black sole, but people are saying it's a shadow. So he's very careful to say that it's got a white sole.
Yeah.
So he can debunk the rumor mill.
Yeah.
And at some point subsequent to this, what, if any, comparison did you do visually with the sneaker that you observed in this photograph with respect to the sneaker that was recovered from the Good Samaritan by Trooper Proctor and Sergeant McCann?
They matched both in make and model, size. The shoe that was recovered by the troopers at the hospital was a right sneaker. This one found was the left, or a left.
Make and model like it's a car. It's a sneaker.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 127. And again, sir, do you recognize what's up there as 127?
Yes.
And if you could, using that laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, of significance you observe in that photograph.
A clear piece of plastic.
Now, with respect to this clear piece of plastic, what, if anything, did you observe or did you note of significance as far as the surface of that particular piece of clear plastic?
I noticed that it's curvature in shape, and there are raised dimples, for lack of a better term, that were along the outside of this piece of plastic, or on one side of it.
Now, Ms. Gilman, if I could have, lastly, from this group, Exhibit 131. And again, Lieutenant, do you recognize what's up on the screen as Exhibit 131?
Yes.
What do you recognize that?
That is a photograph that I took at 34 Fairview that depicts a red piece of plastic.
We have any metadata on these photos to say what time they were taken?
Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Now, with respect to the items that were observed and photographed by you on January 29th during the search team search, what happened with those items from the scene?
They were collected, placed in an evidence bag, and brought back to our offices to be secured.
And if you could, as far as the evidence sort of system is conducted with regard to this case and other cases and investigations within your unit, can you explain to the jury that process of sort of when an item is seen or an item of evidentiary value is seized, what happens?
First, to provide context, by policy, I am the evidence officer for the unit, and I have assistant evidence officers who assist me in the caretaking of the evidence. So we'll use this particular instance where evidence is collected at a scene, it's memorialized in place, placed in, if it's the right shape and the right condition, in a paper bag with some notes placed on the outside of the bag, transported to our office where it's secured either in a temporary locker or the permanent evidence area.
And as far as when it's taken into custody and put into a bag, what is sort of the protocol or the policies with regard to how that bag is marked or what is done with that bag once you have the item contained there?
There's certain piece of information that will typically go in the bag, the name of the person who is picking the evidence up, put in the bag, the date, time, location, a brief description of the evidence contained in the bag. It will then be taped, and initials will be placed on the tape to memorialize who did the taping and the date in which the taping occurred.
And as far as the supervisor, as far as evidence is concerned, you mentioned that there are some evidence officers who are assistants to you as the actual evidence officer.
Yes.
And at this time, in January 29, 2022, who were those evidence officers within your unit?
Relative to the homicide section, it was Trooper Jeff Kotkowski and Trooper David DeChico.
Oh, both of whom were in the group, the dirty group text messages.
Evidence storage at your
It's
office.
all right. Tully
The
handled
jury
it.
sort of
He handled
how
it.
that's managed, where it is, and how I
He admonished
checked
him.
in, to evidence
Reprimanded
once.
him.
Yep.
We have an evidence tracking system. So as evidence comes in, we place it into the system. A label will be created and placed on the outside with the case number and an item number specific to that bag. It will be placed into the evidence room, which is locked in two different methods and has an alarm code pad, and you need your ID pass to swipe in order to enter. And only certain members of the unit have access and know the code to the alarm. Me obviously being the one, and the two assistant evidence officers. And that's subject to inspection by the state police frequently.
And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but at this time, it's essentially yourself, Trooper DeChico, Trooper Kotkowski, who had access to that evidence storage area.
Yes.
Now, with respect to the remainder of the troopers within your unit, would they have access to that same evidence storage area?
No.
Now, with respect to your unit at this time, late January of 2022, how many troopers were in your unit or under your supervision in the second unit at that time?
There were 13 under my supervision for the unit as a whole. Specific to the homicide section, there were 4 troopers and 1 sergeant.
And that number, as far as 4 troopers and 1 sergeant, is that sort of a typical number, a low number, high number?
Historically for Norfolk, that was a low number. We have since had more transfers come into the unit.
And how many do you supervise within the homicide unit at this point?
1 sergeant and 7 troopers.
Now, with respect to the evidence storage area, is there sort of a temporary versus a permanent storage area contained within that locked and coded storage area?
Yes.
And can you describe sort of the difference between the two and how things are managed by either you or your assistants with regard to evidence within the locked storage area?
So because only essentially 3 people have access to the permanent storage area, if a member collects evidence and brings it back to the office and doesn't have access to the main storage area, we have another temporary storage area that is allowed by policy where they can then secure the evidence. The next available time, the person who has access to the main room will come in and transport that piece of evidence from the temporary area to the permanent area.
As far as that transportation or transmission from the temporary area to the permanent area, What, if any, sort of documentation is generated in regards
What are you
to
watching on
that?
Netflix these days?
There's no notation from one location to the other.
Nothing
as
really. You?
allowed by policy.
And as far as when items are seized and when their labels are sort of printed in relation
Watching
to
too much
those items, is
YouTube.
that always
Yeah.
done sort of simultaneously when the item comes in, or how is that typically done timing?
Same with the label printing system. So only the evidence officers have the ability to create the labels and put it into the system. So you need them to create the label. So if a member comes in, doesn't have access to that system, place it in temporary storage area at the next available opportunity for an evidence officer or assistant evidence officer to arrive, know that there's evidence there and process it, place a label on it, and stick it in a permanent storage area.
Now, with respect to those,
Do you think they sent out a memo to these guys when they dressed, to come into court? No pink ties. Do you think they had a no pink tie
Yes.
rule?
Oh yeah, pink
Right?
is the color of the defense.
The devil. It's the devil's color.
I mean, some of the wacky online people accused one of the mainstream reporters who one day just happened to have a pink tie early as an embedded agent of the defense or something. It's so
They tried to cancel him. Yeah.
yeah ridiculous.
items that you recovered from 34 Fairview Road at the roadway in front of it, where were those items located with respect to each other?
They were in total within a 5-foot area. So if you're looking at the house from right to left was how they were found. First was that first picture you displayed, which was the red piece of plastic. About 3 feet from that was the Nike sneaker. About 1 or 2 feet to the left of that was the clear plastic, and just next to that was another piece of red plastic along the curb of the road.
And as far as those items that were recovered in bag and placed in evidence on January 29th, did you have occasion to bring those items with you to court today?
Yes.
And your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Cool. Unbag it. Did he just pull it? Did he just pull it?
Who doesn't carry gloves in their lapel pocket? I mean, hang on.
I thought he was going to pull out a Swiss Army knife. Hold on.
I mean, this guy's ready to rock and roll. He's got, look at this.
He's got the gloves with him at all times, just in case he's ever driving by and some evidence reveals itself. He's always got him on the inside pocket of his suit jacket.
He's the MacGyver of the Massachusetts State. He's got everything in there.
It's crinkling. It was the crinkling, not you. He doesn't need the box that's on the witness stand. He's just got him right there.
Lieutenant, first, just with reference to the item I placed before you, do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that to be?
The bag that contains the left sneaker that was seized from 34 Fairview Road that day, outside the residence.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, may the witness remove that item from the bag and display it for the jury.
Yes.
Since we've been talking about like Fall River accents and stuff, what is the yes? Brian Albert said that too. Yes, he would say yes. And like he almost says it a little bit. What kind
They
of
have
accent
a
is
little
that?
bit of a different Boston accent. That's much more towny, if you will, like more Boston.
Yes becomes 2 syllables.
Yeah, no.
Yes.
The Alberts and McCabe's have a much thicker, towny Boston type accent. Where, but again, when they called her having a Fall River accent, that's meant to be insulting. That was definitely implying for some stupid reason that she was low class or something.
Brian Albert was the one I noticed it the most at the yes.
Yeah, no, the commenter's right. They're from Southie, which is South Boston.
Oh.
They don't drink soda; they drink tonic.
Oh.
They don't go to the water fountain. They go to the bubbler. Look at the bubbler over there.
Okay, so this is the left sneaker. Is this the one that was found at the scene?
Yeah, this is no sneaker.
Stop crinkling that in our ear, sir.
569.
Well,
Pieces that were recovered from the roadway in front of 34 Fairview Road.
And sir, if you could, just with respect to each of those bags, read what is listed as a description on the outside of the bag to the jury.
The description on this first one is pieces of clear hard plastic tail light cover. Location 34 Fairview Road, Canton.
And the second, please.
The description is pieces of red hard plastic tail light cover. Location 34 Fairview Road, Canton.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would ask that the witness be allowed to open each of those bags and display the items to the jury.
Okay.
In case you guys missed it, it did have a white bottom sole, that sneaker that he showed, the one that was found
Start with the red plastic.
on the road.
Okay.
I'll call both to seek to introduce and admit those as the next exhibit.
All right, Mr. Jackson, they're coming in.
No objection. Thank you.
570.
Lieutenant, before we get to the next item before you, if I could just ask a couple questions in regard to the search. January 29, 2022, about what time is it that you arrived in the area of 34 Fairview?
About 5:30.
And had yourself or any members of your unit, to your knowledge, been at 34 Fairview at any point in time prior to your arrival there that day?
No.
Objection.
How could he know?
I'll allow it as to
No,
whether he
this-
knows.
again, it's beyond his knowledge.
How long was it that you were on scene at 34 Fairview that day?
About an hour.
Now, with respect to when these items were found, do you know approximately what time the first item was located
Appeared.
by a member of the search team?
Yes.
He was about to say appeared.
5:45.
Now, with respect to at any point in time that you were on scene at 34 Fairview Road on January 29th, 2022, was either Trooper Proctor or Sergeant Buchanan on scene at 34 Fairview while you were there?
No.
And with
Well, they
respect to
wouldn't
around
be.
that time, as
I
a
mean, if the
supervisor,
theory
were
is
you
they
aware of where
sprinkled the
were,
snow earlier.
their location at that time?
Right.
Yes.
Why would they stick around? But remember, O'Hara also said there were like 3 guys walking around in plain clothes that he assumed were law enforcement, but he didn't know who they were.
Yeah. And it doesn't even, I mean, look, I don't know how deep or wide this conspiracy or what looks like a conspiracy goes, but it's not like Proctor and Buchanan or whatever his name is. I won't say, I'm not going to say it that.
Buchanan.
Yeah.
Don't say the dirty word.
They don't have to be the ones who literally would have gone there and sprinkled the snow. I mean, that's
Hmm. But people are saying that these pieces they found didn't even match to the taillight anyway. So they could have been from anybody, any taillight anywhere, from any junkyard in town.
well, that's interesting. I know there was a lot of like online sleuths, and some of them are like really good. I mean,
Putting
as
it together like a
I mean,
puzzle.
you've seen some of them around who are like amazing
Yeah.
and watch everything multiple times. And when they had that one very competent lab lady, I forget her name, the one who was very nervous but was very intelligent, not the one who failed a proficiency test 3 times on identifying hair samples. The
Mhm.
other one, I think her Ashley. maybe.
Ashley.
When she recreated the taillight, and you know, people have gone back and confirmed this, the pieces that she used to recreate the taillight did not include the initial search.
That's what I'm saying, right? So they could have been from anywhere. They could have been from another accident down the street that got
how-
plowed into this.
How the hell are they going to explain how they recreated a taillight? And these guys are saying we found pieces of her taillight and it's not part of the rebuilt taillight.
Right.
Seems like kind of a small problem when you have the burden of proof.
Just a little tiny one.
Yeah.
And where was that?
They were following a tow truck that was towing Miss Reed's vehicle from Dayton to Canton.
Now, with respect to vehicle and/or the pieces of red and clear plastic that were found by the search team at 34 Fairview Road on January 29th, what, if any, conversation did you have with respect to Lieutenant O'Hara in regard to the vehicle and sort of the damage on it?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
There's no reason
We
to
wanted to
allow-
know what we were looking for. Specifically, Lieutenant O'Hara wanted to know
What's the question?
What did O'Hara tell you about the condition of the vehicle or something, you know, a hearsay amongst cops as opposed to just saying
Right.
what he knew and what they were looking for. She's letting him describe the condition of the taillight, so they say.
what are we looking for and what's the scope of the items we're looking for. So we had discussion about how much taillight we believed was missing from Miss Reed's vehicle, so that as we go along, we would know if we had it enough or we had it all, I should say.
And so,
Well,
with
then why'd
respect
you
to that, what
stop
if
after 3?
Right. And then more revealed itself in
Oh, what about this?
in the
If-
5 more searches.
if you did this search is like, you know, a so-called real search, at least the way they define it. We did a grid search. We walked down the line
Shoulder to shoulder.
and they find 3 pieces, but he's saying we're looking for a lot. I mean,
Right.
you've seen what they claim. Admittedly, it was stupid to do this in the dark. So why not come back with a real search in the morning as opposed to having Yuri instruct, you know, just drive by there on the way to work, like
And
Chief
back.
Berkowitz, and then we'll all just find evidence reveal itself. I mean, nobody's going to believe this. It's too much.
So much.
anything were you able to share with Lieutenant O'Hara with respect to Ms. Reed's vehicle at that particular time?
I didn't have much information because it was still on a tow truck or being loaded up into the Canton Police Department.
So they didn't snap a picture of the broken taillight and text it to you? Because we have that technology these days.
Listen, as you do, I know a lot of cops, obviously, just from professional work and a lot of friends. And one of the biggest facts that a lot of the cops find interesting is that these guys were so obsessed that this was a car accident. As you noted, they had the tow truck coming before they even saw the car. And he says, I saw the taillight gone. And this idiot Proctor never took a single photo. That is literally impossible for me to believe, that if the taillight was in the condition that he claimed it was, especially given how outraged he was by this terrible thing that Karen Reed did. And here was your best chance to nail her to a wall, and he didn't do it. And he got left with having, did you see, cruiser camera video from someone else at 8 a.m. and see a taillight covered in snow. Nobody's going to believe this. Nobody. Well, no sane person is going to believe it.
Well,
I have to qualify.
Yeah, you
that.
have to. Well, apparently you have to, because, everyone's got a camera in their pocket nowadays, right? So not only do they have work phones, they have personal phones, because we've seen the text messages. We know we have a personal phone too.
The NYPD, they use their iPhones. That's what they do.
That's what I'm saying.
They
It's in your
respond to
pocket.
domestic
You got a
violence
camera in your
cases,
pocket.
and somebody says, I have a scratch on my neck. They literally will take out an iPhone and take 10 pictures and send it to the DA right away. This is impossible.
At the time, so I didn't have any actual knowledge of how much taillight we're looking for.
How could you not? How could you not have a photograph to know what you're looking for?
I can answer that. The reason they don't have a photograph is because it doesn't match what he wants it to match. And they have to wait until they ding the taillight. Yes, I'm putting on my tinfoil hat for the internet people, some of them anyway. And then what do? They call the crime scene people as they played the video. And in the Sally port, we're going to take pictures of the car missing the taillight days later. I mean, this is...
Yeah, after we get the search warrant, then we'll photograph it. And,
this is like Keystone cops of the worst variety.
It's like a scavenger hunt. Here's the list. You need to find a sneaker. You need to find a couple of pieces of taillight. We don't really know how many because we don't have a picture of what's missing. So we can't really tell you how many to find.
It's impossible to believe.
A spool of thread and a thimble. Like in that old game show where the guy would come over and be like, do you have a thimble? And she'd be looking through her bag and finding them. This is what we're doing here?
This is a self-described paramilitary organization investigating a homicide of a dead cop on another dead cop's lawn. And literally, they want you to believe, take my word for it, with all their baggage, that that's what the taillight looked for. And they can't produce a single photograph in real time of what it looked like.
Yeah.
It's just that in and of itself is reasonable doubt to a lot of people.
Right. Yet how many pictures, somebody said, did they take of John's car? Right. They got all the pictures of John's car to show there was no damage. And they said that to show there was.
It actually looks like there is damage. If you look above, like the upper left, I mean, I don't know when it's from, because the other thing is they introduced the photo, but there's no metadata. So you don't know when it was taken.
Right. No.
Why would there be metadata? Snow. I mean, I don't know how much the snow.
No. Why should we know that? We just got some authenticated weather records, though, so maybe we could stop hearing about that for a little while.
Yeah.
And prior to you leaving from the scene at 34 Fairview Road, along with the CERT team on that date of January 29th, even at that time, did you know the full extent or how much taillight you were looking for at that time?
No.
Now, sir, if I could ask you just to, with board's permission, Your Honor, may he remove the items from that second active form?
That's right. It was let's make a deal. That's right. You want what's in the box, or you want what's behind the curtain, or you want what's in this envelope, or you want what's in the solo cup or the Stop and Shop bag? What do you want?
Lieutenant, from the two items that you have before you in your hand, you would reference one of those clear pieces having some sort of stippling or raised surfaces on it. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if you could just with your finger or just in some way delineate to the jury.
How do you not have a Lexus expert to say that's an exact?
You can see it as you look through it. You can see
on the LX whatever 2021 model, and they show them Karen Reed's car and say, yes, that's the exact same one. How do you not do that for the DA?
We don't even know that it's from her car. We don't know that it's from a Lexus. We don't know that it's
that is from her car.
And look at the next piece. Look at
what a bubbling of it. As you run your finger along, you can feel indentations along there, as well as the ridges that are along the top end here.
Ruffles have ridges. Look at that other piece. It's a big ass
You could,
piece.
you can place those items back in the back.
Didn't find that.
And Your Honor, Commonwealth will seek to introduce and admit the next exhibit.
Come to SECO to say this.
Your Honor, my, given the time and given where I am.
Why don't you come to SECO to say this?
Given the time and given the fact that I've been so obliterated today and embarrassed that I can't take anymore, Your Honor. I need to have a cigarette. I need to get,
Oh my God.
I need to have a cigarette.
Rather than while we keep talking, I'm going to go ahead and send you home. Please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do
Can we
any
watch those last 5 minutes?
Jury out.
What?
Everyone's telling me it was unbelievable.
Juror is leaving your notebook
Oh yeah,
on the chair.
5 minutes.
All right.
The last where they talk about the where he
They
talks about.
start building up to the suicide text
Yeah. Let's go back.
because I haven't had enough Proctor. I need,
Yeah, we need more Proctor. Let's try and. Where was that? Oh, you got to turn that beeping off. It's killing my ears. Hold on, wait.
how
In
do
the
I do
garage
that?
or Sallyport, where Karen Reed's SUV was parked. Answer.
Can we get a timestamp on that? Anybody?
It's at the very end. Oh, might be right.
Yeah, I think it
Oh,
was
that
right before the break here, right?
The back
Towards like the rear. Yeah.
where you were.
Probably after that, right?
It's after lunch. It's after lunch.
Oh, it was after lunch. Okay. I'll come back. And the fan.
You could delete videos. You could do anything you wanted to.
Not at all.
Not family, not friends with the albums.
Absolutely not.
At some point, your view of this case caused you to turn what could be described as a bias into an out and out hatred. Would you agree with that?
You didn't see this part, right? This is the part? Okay. For those of you just joining, maybe, or still here, we're going back to the part that Mark missed when he had to make a court appearance. This is going back to the text messages of Proctor dissing Karen Reed right after lunch.
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you develop some sort of hatred for Miss Reed at
Objection.
any point in your investigation?
I'll allow it.
Goes to bias.
Again.
That's totally proper.
Right. Which
Was
is
he-
exactly.
His habit of these ouch objections, just because I don't want, it hurts. Do they do like trial advocacy or training before they hire? Like he just look. They don't. They clearly
No.
don't. He has a right to do this. And moreover, if you were the DA dealing with this, wouldn't you want to signal the jury that I'm with you? This is awful. This guy is gross, but then just try to establish that even though he's gross, it doesn't mean this case is gone. But like to try to make sure the jury knows that you don't approve, because all you're doing is making it sound like you're protecting this guy.
Right.
If I were the prosecutor, I would never be the prosecutor in this case, I assure you. But if I was, I would even tell this guy on cross, you're on your own. I'm going to let you take a beating. I'm not going to object. When they come after you, put on your big boy pants. You're going to get it. I'm not going to protect you. It's nothing personal, but I'm not.
Right.
We can't be stopping this stuff.
Nope. The train's going down the track and you're going with it.
We follow the facts and evidence which showed Miss Reed hit Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle. And yes, at times I got emotional because of that. And I said some stuff, texted some things I shouldn't have, but it was based off the evidence.
As a matter of fact, you did express
What does that
your
even
feelings
mean?
about Miss Reed in yet another text message that we haven't gone over yet today. Is that right? On February 4th, 2022?
Really, you need to look for it. You know
Oh,
exactly where
remember
he's
this
going.
one?
Might as well turn to 10.
What's that?
I said, you don't remember this one,
No.
buddy? Like, this is the one you can't remember.
Tab 10.
He's trying to hold in his leaky poo right about now.
Ugh.
Tab 10?
Who did he send? Is this
It's
to the
either
buddy?
the bait stamp or
Buddies.
the.
This is his sister, I think.
The suicide text is to the sister?
I think so, yeah. Let's go back. Like I forgot already because so long ago.
That's even worse.
Triple F is in Foxtrot. And the bait stamp is 2526.
Look at him, looking earnest. I'm going to read it carefully.
Yes, sir.
Want to
You
be
see an
careful.
entry from Courtney Proctor, a text starting, "I didn't give my."
Yes.
Request permission to publish, Your Honor.
Yes.
2526, Mr. Bates.
He's like,
Yeah. Well, they
On
had
that
it.
date,
though.
February 4th, 2022, your sister texted in relation to some sort of donation that she had given. "I didn't give my name as I didn't want anyone to link me to Michael."
okay, they're going to object and go to sidebar. So I just want us to read this together because some of it's not going to come in. I think I didn't give my name as I didn't want anyone to link me to Michael. And then hopefully she'll kill herself is the response from him. And this is on 2/4/22, 5:38. And then Courtney says, "Whatever you know must be bad because some people just say it was a bad drunken tragedy." Then I can't see what it says. And then it says, "Let's hope
She does.
she does so she doesn't drag this out for this family."
Wait a minute. So the sister says, "I agree. Let's hope she." So the family, the brother and sister who communicate 5-6 times a day, both
Mhm.
agreed the best outcome here would be for her to just jump
Hopefully she'll
over.
kill herself. Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever you know must be bad because some people just say it was a bad drunken tragedy.
That seems reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning you, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
Name as I didn't in relation to some sort of donation that she had given. "I didn't give my name as I didn't want anyone to link me to Michael," meaning you, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach?
Okay, take that down.
Yes. And then she makes him take it down.
Ouch. Again, the ouch objection. Let me just signal to the jury that I'm terrified what's about to come out, that they just saw, by the way.
Mhm. It's really going to hurt my case, Your Honor. I really need a.
Never mind the pink elephant in the room. Let's just pretend that never happened. And
Mhm.
he's so stupid.
It just makes it worse.
You are unmuted.
He makes it worse. He's just drawing their attention to it even more.
Mhm.
Your Honor?
Yes.
So now they know it must be really bad. Whatever's about to happen is going to be really bad.
Yep.
You see the text from Courtney Proctor. "I did not give my name as I didn't want anyone to link me."
So that's
Oh, so somebody is saying that it was a donation to Chris Albert's campaign. "I didn't give my name because I didn't want anybody it to connect back to you." Chris Albert's now like the town selectman or something.
You know what? If it's saying I don't want to be associated with the Alberts, I mean, you could make an argument, Judge, that goes to the whole point. I mean, okay. I mean, whatever. But
If that's what it is, I don't know.
stricken.
Yeah.
That's what was objected to, just this one.
Yeah.
Or the whole page goes in.
You responded to a text message from your sister, correct? And your response was, "Hopefully she kills herself," correct?
Yes.
Who's she?
The defendant.
Miss Reed?
Correct.
You literally said that you hope that Karen Reed, the subject of your investigation, the woman sitting to my left, about 7 feet from me, that she would just die, correct?
The figure of speech.
You wanted her to, the figure of speech is you wanted her to
God.
kill herself,
No.
right?
No, it's not.
Trooper Proctor, Karen Reed, in your investigation, had quickly become a very serious problem for you, hadn't she?
Objection.
Sustained.
why? Why is that sustained?
Because it hurts Lally.
He's demonstrating an alleged personal animus that he has against her, which is another form of saying bias and can go to someone's credibility. I mean, bias is the most important form of impeachment, bar none.
Which could taint the investigation.
A motive to fabricate evidence against her. I hate her so much. That's
I hate her so much that I wish she would kill herself.
this
5 days.
judge, she doesn't know the rules of evidence or just doesn't care. I can't believe she would shut that down.
Do you believe that Karen Reed was a problem or an issue for your investigation?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No, absolutely not.
In your words, quote, "All the powers that be want answers ASAP." That's what you texted on January 29th, right?
Yes.
That put a lot of pressure on you, didn't it, Trooper Proctor?
There's a lot of pressure in every case, sir.
This case involves a
There's the opening. But how many other cases have you, wished
Mhm.
death on the? Wonder why he didn't do that. I'm really surprised because it's right there and he's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
A Boston cop whose family you were actually connected to, correct?
Loosely.
Loosely.
Chris Albert, loosely.
Yes.
Drunk with a
Julie
gun.
Albert,
Yeah.
loosely.
Yes.
Colin Albert, loosely.
Yes.
Kevin Albert, loosely.
Yes.
Loose enough to leave his badge and his gun in your cruiser after a night of drinking, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
They already know it.
You agreed in your group chat that you needed to, quote, make this cut and dry because another cop was involved. Those are your words, right?
Objection.
Where is this?
This
The other
was
day.
referred to in earlier text messages.
What
chat.
is he
So
objecting
so
to?
is that right? Did you say that, sir?
He did. We
I
heard it.
did text that. I don't know if it's in the exact context. But yes, those were my words.
Group chat.
Yes, that was in the group chat.
Your friends wrote this whole thing, in their words, stinks, correct?
Yes, I interpret that as a joke.
You believed, Trooper Proctor, that your life would be much easier if Karen Reed was just dead, didn't you?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No. Like I had said, it was a figure of speech. My
I-
emotions got the best of me based on,
Why?
My
Why?
emotions got the best of me.
But he literally texted, "I wish she was dead."
I wish she would kill herself.
Right. Better and correct. And then the lawyer basically says, you felt you'd be better off if she was dead. Your
Mhm.
life would be easier, which is just rephrasing the exact same thing he said and trying to establish that's why you sent it. And he objects to that.
It's a figure of speech. I wish she would just kill herself. Don't you say that all the time about people? Oh, I wish they would just kill themselves.
It was a figure of, I didn't mean it. I just said it because
Isn't that something you say? Like it's raining cats and dogs. Oh, I wish she would just kill himself. I wish she would just kill herself.
what's
It's
for
a figure
dinner?
of speech.
What's for dinner? I wish you would just kill yourself.
Right.
I mean, this is okay. Just kidding.
For him, it's something he probably says often. Are you mad at your wife? Oh, I wish she would just kill
I mean,
herself.
I would ask him that or grill him on, what do you mean by figure of speech? Is this just a word around the Proctor household?
Right. Is this what you say about everybody?
You kiss your kids goodnight and
fact
say,
that
hey, I
Miss-
wish,
Yeah, you kiss your mother with that mouth? Like, come on.
Reed hit Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle and left him to die on the side of the road. So my emotions got the best of me with that figure of speech.
Well, let's talk about your figures of speech. During the course of your investigation,
This is great.
your figures of speech include the following.
oh, here it comes. Yeah, good.
She's a bitch.
Objection.
Is that right?
Yes.
A
Big
whack
one.
job, correct?
Yes.
That's
A
one laugh,
retard,
I guess.
right?
Yes.
Her balloon knot leaks, right?
Yes.
No ass, correct?
Yes.
She's fucked, according to you, right?
Yes.
Ass leaker. That was a word you used, a figure of speech,
I
right?
hear that one.
Correct.
A girl who shits herself, right?
Correct.
And then fuck her, correct?
Correct.
Here's the big one.
Would you agree, Trooper Proctor, that you have dehumanized Karen Reed during the course of your investigation with comments and words like this?
Objection.
I'll give you this one, Mr. Jackson.
Oh,
Would you agree
thanks.
with that?
I would say based off that language,
Listen to how long it takes him to answer. You've dehumanized her, haven't you?
yes.
And you admitted, in your own words,
It's the right answer.
that the cop homeowner wasn't going to, quote, catch any shit, right?
Correct.
Because you were out to quote, make this cut and dry. Isn't that right?
The homeowner wasn't going to catch any shit because Mr. Elba had nothing to do with Mr. O'Keefe's death.
Because you were going to make sure that the case was cut and dry. Those were your words, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
They were.
And Trooper Proctor, it
What
would
did
be
she
far easier for you to pin it on the girl who's just a whack job cunt, in your words, who you hope just kills herself, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Shame on you, sir.
Objection.
All right, so jurors, disregard that. I've told you before, lawyers can't make comments. They can ask questions. And Mr. Jackson, you know better than
I
that.
understand. That's all I have.
Mr. Lally?
And that is what you missed.
Yeah, no, that's good. Great finish. And a great last word. Who cares? You know, is it proper? No. But is it important? Yes. And unlike Lally, both of these guys have repeatedly demonstrated that they sincerely believe what they're doing. And he's letting the jury know, I am truly disgusted by this vile pig that I just spent the last day and a half cross-examining. And that's what I feel. The judge definitely was going to sustain it. It's the one proper objection, I suppose, by Lally. Although I might even consider letting that go to just, push it aside and whatever. But I think it's great. And listening to the judge say, Mr. Jackson, sure, judge, whatever. I'm done with him. I don't need this. Get him out of here. I love it.
Yeah. But then Lally came back, with his redirect and it went on again.
Yeah. I mean,
Forever,
and
'cause you
he's
saw
gonna-
that part.
Right. Oh yeah. God, I don't ever want to see that again. But
We had this question earlier, so I thought I'd wait for you. So
Right.
I was wrongly arrested, misidentified. When I asked for an attorney, they said I'd have to spend the night first. Is that true? I didn't know a lawyer at the time.
well, they can't just hold you in jail and deprive you if you have the means, or even if there's a phone to call a lawyer. I mean, you're supposed to be arraigned promptly, whatever that means. And in certain small towns, it can take longer. But they may not literally bring a lawyer to visit you in jail, but you shouldn't be deprived access to contact one. And of course, if you get through to one and one is willing to come down, they shouldn't deprive that either. So,
Sometimes the arraignments aren't happening until the next day. So, I don't know the circumstances, but
yeah.
Girl Rye, thanks. He can't spell the word utmost integrity and investigation, let it alone conduct one.
Did he cross him on the spelling errors? Did I miss that? Was I
on the spelling errors of the
Proctor? Apparently, in his reports, misspelled almost every
witnesses' names,
prosecution witness. And I guess the theory would be, when you start Googling and looking, or background searches, if you have, bad names and bad information, it's harder
to find
learn.
them.
Yeah.
I did not hear him get crossed on that at all. But Scrivener's error. I didn't hear it. Did anybody hear it?
That was great, by the way. The 416 to 530, and how it was a typo, and how the 4 became a 5. It's basically 3 typos.
It was like 416 became 53. Ridiculous.
So it's not like house long. That's 1 typo, right?
Yeah.
This would actually be 3 typos. So I thought that was actually really good.
Yeah, I didn't hear them talk about that. Rafferty lives across the street from Tully in Norfolk, Mass. That's interesting. Thank you, Elson. Do you have a hard stop? Do you have to go? Because I can address these after you go. All right, let's see. Let us see. Wendy, darling, thank you. Love your channel. And Mark, my only question, how long is this corrupt piece of garbage going to be on the stand? Will he lose his job over this?
Yes.
Think so?
He's getting, even this guy gets due process. There was no way they were going to fire him before. He's now admitted what he did. Okay. He's now given sworn testimony admitting he did all of these things. There's the public pressure also. Yeah, I think he'll be toast, but it'll be after the trial. They'll never do anything while the trial is going on. And I think they're going to also have to figure out, has he done, I'm sure this is part of the IAB, has he done this with other cases? And then the real question I think that they'll want to figure out is, how much of a role does he really have in some of these other big cases, like that Walsh case, which would be a disaster. But he's useless as a cop, because every DA's office now has what colloquially in New York they call the naughty list, where the cops who have been discredited, or they all keep a list, and they have to disclose that in the future as Brady material. And Proctor is, he's damaged goods.
He's tainted. Forget it. They can never use him again.
Discredited. He's done. He's gone. I wouldn't worry about, you're not going to see him anymore when this is over. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. Thanks, Melissa Smith. My family is well connected in my hometown in New Jersey. Every year, a trooper friend brought over a full box of car placards so cops wouldn't pull us over. moving to Colorado was a wake-up call, but I like living a more honest life.
I mean, look, when you're in New Jersey, you do see a lot of like police badge things that some people put on their
PBA cards in the windshield.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I'll be fully honest. When we were DAs, a lot of the cops would throw us PBA cards.
Oh, I have some.
When you're a young DA, you're like, wow, what does this do? Not much.
Nothing.
I mean, the reality is when you were a DA, you had a shield. So you had,
Well,
it was like,
unfortunately, I mean, for me, all my friends were NYPD, and out here in Nassau, Suffolk, they don't care about that. There's no professional courtesy, and the state troopers out here really don't care about that. So,
I mean,
you show them one of those, and you're getting, you're getting 2 tickets.
It was more like a toy to like, ooh, look at me. I'm like 24 years old with power and important, but not really.
Exactly. Professional courtesy? No. True Crime with Stephanie Michelle. Thanks for the $50 super chat. The CW wouldn't have a case if it didn't snow. There's so much corruption with this case. It's astounding and disgusting. And it's even more mind-boggling that people still think Karen Read is guilty.
But
All the love being thrown, you're right, Karen.
Supports why, I mean, if you believe that she was framed, which a lot of people do, and you believe that he was killed in the house, I think the snow also is why he would have been left where he was left. If it never snows and you believe they killed him, I mean, not to get all gory and nasty, but you take a car in a garage, you do whatever you're going to do, and you put them in a trunk and drive them far away. But I think you can't really go out and drive in the snow. You run the risk of getting pulled over, getting in an accident. There's not many cars out there. People remember the cars they see. And if you just dump them on the front lawn, the other thing is, could it be a plow accident or whatever, or did somebody hit him? And then I think you get her running around saying, did I hit him? Did I hit him?
And I cracked my taillight, and then
the light goes on, which, by the way, is scary in some sense, because for these people on the fly to kind of come up with that, if that's what they did, it's not bad. But of course, the problem is, what happens when, she's not like some uneducated idiot. She's actually going to get real lawyers who are going to fight. And it becomes clear that it's not going to take that much difficulty to unwrap this based on his injuries and everything. Right. And I think totally the text message by Proctor that she's going to, I wish she would just kill herself, is probably the most honest thing he ever said out loud, which is, look what I've got. I'm screwed at some point. Look what I've done. And look at him now. He's cooked.
I mean, his life is over as he knows it, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I don't even have to imagine. I mean, it's pretty clear.
On the front page of the Boston Herald today.
I showed that earlier.
And he's disgraced his family. He's, I'm sure he knows this. He's, if he had any sense of pride or at least integrity, he would be concerned that he's, what have I left my children? I'm a disgrace to them when they get old enough, and, oh, your dad's that dirty cop who framed that innocent woman years ago. But the wife was out there very aggressively defending him. It was really surprising.
That's what I heard, but I couldn't verify if it was actually her post or not. So people were saying that, and I don't.
It was very woe is me and what we
stand by your man
and
sort of thing.
And why are you defending this cop killer? I mean, so they're really still throwing darts at her too.
Wow. Susan, could it be that the prosecutor for the Commonwealth is inept on purpose? Maybe he secretly doesn't believe in the case and was pressured to take it to trial like the ME, or to distance himself from the federal case?
If he doesn't believe in the case, he ought to have the guts to explain to the people in the office that I think this is wrong. And the legal, ethical, and moral thing to do is to say, I can't do it if I don't believe she's guilty, or I don't believe that we have a prosecutable case, or I think the cops are lying to me, or whatever. It's difficult, I get it, but the answer is not to go do something you don't believe in and attempt to convict someone you don't believe should be convicted. And if he did that, then he should be fired and disbarred. No, I think he's just not particularly skilled, has no charisma, and is a patty maker. I mean, that's kind of an expression we used to use. There are certain lawyers who make filet mignon, and there are other ones who are patty makers. Lally is a patty maker. He comes in, punches the clock, does what he does, and goes home and comes back the next day. Probably
he's Johnny Punch Clock. He gets paid whether he wins or loses, and Can he go to his boss and say, I don't want to do this? Yeah, okay, but maybe you get fired. Like, I mean, I don't know that it's his.
The sad thing for him is that when this is all over, and if the feds, if they get back into it with thinking that there are problems with this case, he's going to be high in the list of people they're going to say, why don't you come down and talk to us?
Mhm.
You know, we're going to extend you I mean, because he knows where the bodies are buried on this
A
case.
formal invitation.
I mean, who else but Lally would know more than anyone else? What did these people tell you? What did you know about the video, about this, the phone records? I mean, the reality is he's in a terrible position because he knows more than anyone what he was told and what the investigation knew. And he
Mhm.
still put forth all the evidence that he did. But, you know, you taxpayers are going to be paying for his and everyone else's lawyers and the DA's office and the police. So
So
congratulations.
could they be prolonging the federal grand jury until this case is over so they can call Lally in to testify,
They could.
right? Because he can't really testify while the case is ongoing, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, they could keep it going. I mean, they could impanel a new one if there's no open business. I mean, I wouldn't think just because there were no indictments the first time that means everyone's home free. I mean, some of the you know, some of the yahoos who are very nasty online who will you know, they'll call you stupid or dumb and your, you know, law degree
Or
comes from.
worse than that. Yeah.
I know, no, I know. I'm sure I'm well aware, you know more than me. But, you know, some of these yahoos, oh, you know, they never got target letters and, you know, from the feds, which usually you would
Everyone's got
get.
a law degree. Yeah.
Right. Everyone has a law degree. But the reality is they may not have been targets back then. They might have just been told you know, the way the feds will often do it. They give you a grand jury subpoena. They want to see how you respond to that. They want to have you come in and talk to them and have a proffer and get a lawyer. And that's what a lot of these people apparently did. So I wouldn't draw any conclusions just because they weren't indicted a year ago.
Right. Suzanne says Yannetti was meeting with Lucky, the plow driver, yesterday, and it happened to be at the school where Courtney Proctor works. That's interesting.
No, they probably wanted to subpoena her too. Maybe two for, you know, with a price of
Two for the
one.
price of one. Two birds with one stone. You can't spell the words utmost integrity and investigation. Let alone conduct one. Thank you. Thank you, Wayne, for your super sticker. Lizika, Yannetti met Lucky, who's a city works. Yes, we know Lucky is the plow driver. Thanks, Lizika. And Wendy became a new member. Congrats. Thank you. Please
Lucky.
add to above chat. It was in the 80s.
That, by the way, for the public, not in Massachusetts, watching this as like the ultimate Massachusetts townie trial, and the local key witness who is the plow driver is named Lucky. I mean, this is like
Lucky Brian Lochran, right? Lucky, Sully, Mickey, Patty,
Sully. There's always
Sully.
you knew there'd be
Always
a Sully in
everybody knows a Sully. Everybody knows a Sully.
Everybody in Boston knows a Sully or 20. Yeah.
Cato Builder, thanks for the 5. When they go to break, you have to replay the last 2 that we did. That's what we just did. Thank you. Vanny Annie, thanks for the 5. Didn't know what you had. You decided at 10:39 on January 29th. She was the one. That's right.
Is that scary, by the way? Like,
so scary.
One of the things when I was just ranting on Twitter, watching this earlier, like in the early parts, you know, you get the stream of conscious, so you just write whatever you're thinking at any given time. Was the scary part about this guy was, let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, I believe him. He's telling the truth. If you do that, which I wouldn't do, the ineptitude and tunnel vision that he had is so frightening that he wrapped it all up within a couple of hours because the McCabe's told him, you know, she said, did I hit him? Did I hit him? And I found one shoe, and therefore
he was hit by a car.
I didn't need to talk to anyone else. I had my arrest. That
He's
is
done.
That is the worst kind of tunnel vision you could ever imagine. And he should be fired for that alone. If you believe him,
he's the worst detective ever.
If you believe him, he's the worst detective ever. And if you don't believe him, he's one of the most corrupt detectives. So, you know, neither one is kind of a good thing.
Nothing's good.
Yeah, it's kind of
Barbara. Thanks. If she did, do you think she would go back there to look for him? I would stay home and wait for the call. Right. Johnny, thanks for the 5. He literally said John O's sneakers match the defendant's vehicle. He's just rambling on and on. Add to playlist Emotion by the Bee Gees. Thank you, Vanny Annie. Rescue Puppy. Let's hope the 10 women in the final. Yeah. We don't know who the alternates are going to be. So they lost a juror this morning, and it was a man.
Well, that's good for this comment, but what a weird way they do it there, where it's random and you don't know, as opposed to like New York, you pick a jury and then you pick alternates, and you know right away that there's a chance that most of these people aren't going to ever see the light of day. And
so how do they pick it at the end? They just put the names in a hat and they pull out 12 and they say, I don't either. Like spin a wheel? Like what goes on there? Like a bingo thing?
You know, it's probably a better way under the theory. If you're an alternate,
you're not paying attention.
Checks out. You're like, screw this. Why am I here? And then of course you get picked because somebody gets sick and you're like, I don't remember anything, but
because I wasn't paying attention. I was just here to collect my 40 beans a day.
Right.
Shannon, thanks for becoming a member. Wendy, darling, I really want to know if Trooper Proctor will lose his job. We did talk about that. Thanks, Wendy. Thank you, Jenna, for the super sticker.
You see, by the way, you know, yesterday floating around was that ridiculous statement from the state police, but that was from a long time ago. You know,
were they backing Proctor up or something? They were like
summer, the union, but they did, you know, allegations. Then yesterday happened, or the other day happened, and they took that statement down and said, we're doing nothing while the trial is going on. This guy's toast.
Yeah.
I know corruption, the cops protect themselves, the unions. This guy's toast.
No, they can't keep him. They've already lost face. Keeping him is going to, nobody in the Commonwealth is going to have any faith in their police.
They will be following the governor around saying, why are you not dictating that he get fired? And women are going to go crazy. He's toast.
Done.
And rightfully so. I'm not saying that it's succumbing to the pressure. This guy should never be allowed to have a gun and badge ever again. He's an embarrassment to any honest, good, dedicated police officer.
It's just gross. Kathleen, Tully already messed up. The CERT team arrived at 5:30. A 34 Favorite Karen's SUV was in the Sallyport. Yeah, I think you're right. I hope the towel has thrown in the towel. Oh, I don't think that will ever happen, Kelly. I don't think.
No, what's going to happen when she gets acquitted, if she gets acquitted, meaning unless the case literally explodes before the jury even gets it, which I don't even dismiss 100% at this point. Those types that they're laughing about now, they're going to blame it on public campaign of harassment and the protesters, and that, you know, that it just influenced the jury, and it's all, you know, bloggers and people online. It's all their fault.
It's our fault for talking about it. It's our fault. We accept. We're getting all the blame. Do any of these police follow rules? Doesn't seem like it. Nina, Mark, will you also comment on the YSL trial? Defense attorney put in jail. Corruption is happening.
I saw the news, but in all fairness, I haven't really followed it that closely. But the idea that they threw a lawyer in jail because he said, "Why are you having ex parte discussions?" and the judge's response was, "How the hell do you know that? And I'm going to put you in jail." That's not good.
You might have to start your own YouTube channel. Are you thinking about it?
You know, maybe, but
plant the seed, Mark. Plant the seed.
Plant the seed, but time is a real. I don't know.
Are you actively practicing? You are actively practicing, right? You just had a court appearance right before our very eyes. So, you know, when you decide to retire, you know, it's not a bad side gig. It's fun. It's fun here.
Yeah, I'm sure
you like it here, but you do like it here. So I want you to come back.
Yeah, I will.
Lerpa and Isaac became new members, and Austin, thank you, says great channel host and my favorite commentator. Now I have to shower. I think
is that a figure of speech?
Well, you have to shower because you feel so gross from what you listened to. David, thank you for the 5. What can be done in regards to grand jury remarks that were sustained over and over?
Well, I don't think it was sustained. I think she allowed that nonsense about.
She allowed it, right? That was overruled, actually.
That's in evidence.
I think that's what he means.
I don't think it's a big deal in the grand scheme. It's a small potato. I mean, there's first world problems in this case, but it's highly offensive that she would allow that, because that is so improper. And I don't think she's corrupt. I know there's issues there with her appearance of impropriety. I just think that she has no control over the courtroom in the sense of being, I mean, one thing lawyers want more than anything else with a judge is consistency, predictability, and fairness. That's it. And be a crappy judge, a good judge, or whatever. Just It's like the way athletes, complain about umpires or referees. I just want to know what I'm getting. And I don't think she calls even balls and strikes. I think she's just all over the map. She's unpredictable. And I think that's probably very frustrating. And I think Jackson in particular is really good at just ignoring it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's unflappable with it, where I'm sure in his head, he's thinking like, I can't stand this and what she's doing. But
Right.
he's like a real cool customer, like really smooth with it.
I mean, yeah. Would you lose your, I don't know. I get very, I mean, this isn't even my case and I get so passionate about it. I get so angry and I take a lot of heat for that because, I must be being paid if I'm passionate about it, but I really feel genuinely like this is a travesty of justice and I get upset about it.
Well, I think that's why so many people are into this. I mean,
Yeah. Because
obviously
it could be anyone.
I've never seen anything like this. I mean, there's big cases, but I've never seen this kind of attention and so much animosity for having a different opinion. I mean, there are some people, as you know, who they will just come at you and think you're paid for, you're this, you're that, you're awful, you're dumb for having the temerity to say, yeah, well, I kind of disagree with what you think.
Oh, not only that, you should be disbarred. Have you gotten that yet? People try to take your license away yet? They're going to call for your disbarment soon, Mark. And then they're going to make funny videos about you. They're going to make up songs about you. They're going to call you Mean Boy Mark, and they're going to think it's all cute. And
no, they're not going to. No, they're not going to do that. I know they.
Oh no, they've done it.
I know. I'm not to me.
Not to you.
I'm well
Why?
aware.
Because you're a guy. What do you think that is?
Yes. To be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, good. That's good. All right.
Probably.
Interesting.
I think that's something to do with it. Yeah.
Wow.
But I got, I mean, it's funny. What started my interest in this whole thing? I mean, I'm from there, so I was interested in it because it's like really towny and it's kind of funny. Just if you're
being from there, I guess. Yeah.
If you're from that area, you can just chuckle at what everybody's seeing. I mean, the stereotypes are just, the whole mass hole thing is just on full display. But I mean, I followed it casually and was more interested in some of the legal stuff going on with the DA's office and the lawyers. And what really got my attention was there is a lawyer, allegedly, who was making really outrageous comments online. Everybody knows who I'm talking about, but I'm trying to be nice.
Oh, and the mother of the towel?
Yes.
Okay. We don't have to mention names, but yes, I know who you're talking about.
I mean, and all I did was respond to I mean, she was saying some of the most offensive for a lawyer, a former prosecutor, a self-styled women's rights lawyer, all that about just no regard for a defendant's constitutional or shocking type statements about, if you don't testify, you're guilty and only any innocent person would testify.
And I hope that she gets Ard in jail. Can't wait for that to happen.
All that stuff. So I started, explaining how like offensive that is. And you're a lawyer, a former prosecutor, you call yourself a law professor, all this. And she is nasty with, I mean, you're an idiot, and then you do some research and you see that this lawyer spouting nonsense is, a Duke lacrosse truther, as I say, I mean, literally supporting to this day that the DA went to jail in that case for all that. And then you do some other stuff and you see all the Rule 11 violations, like published opinions about literally like sanction for filing frivolous papers, making frivolous arguments. And then, it goes from there. But then, so that led me to get more interested in the
you spiraled. She made you spiral.
Yeah, no, it's all her fault. So for all you people who can't stand what I say, it's her fault. And then
here's the glarer. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just say, so you start paying attention more and more. And I think what probably pissed a lot of those people off was it took me about 10 minutes to realize like something's not right here. I mean, I don't know if she's innocent, but
I know
there's no chance that she's ever going to get convicted, which is very triggering for people. And it just gets worse and worse where, I mean, I'm at the point now where, I mean, I'm pretty comfortable with the idea that she got framed. I mean, I believe that.
Yeah.
Like, tinfoil hat and all. I mean, and that's not pity based or sympathy based. It's, analytically based on the evidence and what's happening. So.
I don't think you need, it's like, all you need is common sense here. You don't need to have a law degree. You don't need to be some sort of conspiracy theorist.
No, no, and it doesn't require 72 people doing 72
No.
things at one time. And I think it'll be interesting to see how some of these people react, because, now you see like this inverted video. I mean, what are we doing here? You see these texts from Proctor. You see, I mean, I think one of the things that Jackson did really good today, I mean, everything he did today was good, but I mean, specifically was he did exactly what Lally didn't do. Well, that's not a very intelligent comment. But when Lally brought out the texts, he just brought them out in his drone, like, did you say this? Did you say this? And he just let him say, well, I did it because I was upset, but he never tried to explain and be, these are very distasteful. He never said, do you want to say anything to Karen Reed, which I think he should have done.
Show some remorse.
He should have looked at her and apologized. Just threw it out there, which actually I thought, if you're going to pop the balloon on direct, he made it worse because he wasn't effective. He just made it look contrived and whatever, where Jackson, he didn't just attack him with the text messages. He did it in the course of his theme of his defense and used the messages to advance the bigger arguments that he's making about, because you had her, so you weren't interested in doing this. And then you said this, and that's, so he didn't just like check off the text messages like Lally did. He weaved in and out, used the message, attached it to the larger issue and did it. I mean, so it was like really showing the purpose of it, not just, I'm going to beat this guy up because he's a piece of shit, which
telling a story. That's what you're doing as a trial lawyer. You're telling a story.
The easy thing to do would just be club him over the head and say, you're disgusting. But he did that while showing why these really matter. So, I mean, it was masterful.
And the pivoting also, when Proctor would say, oh, you told her to kill herself, that's just a figure of speech. Oh, a figure of speech. Let's go through all of your other figures of speech.
Yeah.
And he had them all there. So he was using his own words against him.
Yep.
You need to be able to do that as a trial lawyer, as you need to be able to think on your feet, pivot and start changing the wording and crafting your argument a different way and going down a different path on a different road. It's not easy. It's not easy, but he makes it look easy.
He does.
It's masterful.
Well, yeah, because he's good at it. I mean, and again, the only thing, and it's easy, he's sitting in the peanut gallery.
Sure.
Is
for us.
It's always easy to watch instead of when you're in the moment doing. I really thought there was an opening about when he said, I was just so upset and so angry that I did this, because that was his only defense to this. And it was so stupid.
Yeah.
And I thought there was a real opening about the other cases that he's had that have been very emotional, horrible crimes. And, what makes this case so different that you sent these messages. And you know what? I might have even asked him if he had another case and he said, I didn't send the messages. What was the name of the defendant in that case? Odds are it was a man. Odds are. And then I even asked him. I mean, you said yourself, the jury is mostly women. So is the reason you did this is because she's an attractive woman? Is that why? I mean, making the misogyny even more and more.
She was a babe, in his words. She was a babe with a Fall River accent. Will the Glare is in here. He says the MSP has allowed Proctor to remain on active duty after already having knowledge of his behavior. Superiors need to be held accountable as well. I agree with that.
He better hope that some of these people are not from or have relatives in the Fall River, New Bedford, real South Massachusetts, near Rhode Island area.
Or have a child who may have special needs, because that retarded word is not going to play well to a lot of people, whether they have children with special needs or not. Like, that is offensive to everyone. Especially
coming from a police officer who has to respond to a lot of crime scenes and other emotional scenes where there can be, developmentally disabled people, whether it be, serious mental illness or something you're born with, unfortunately, or something like high level spectrum type stuff where, you have to be delicate, and he's walking around talking like that. Not good.
Blessed Mom from Texas, thank you so much for coming in with the 20. I'm outraged. Love to you, Melanie. Love Mark being with us. And thanks for the playlist. Love to all people with common sense. Keep an eye on your own community as well. Hit the like button, cupcakes. Thank you. Kennedy says mishigas is an understatement. It's a word I use all the time. It is an understatement. Wolfram, thanks for the 5. As a former Army MP, I can safely say that Canton PD, MSP, and the DA's office make the Keystone Cops look like competent professionals.
I can't tell you how many real cops I've spoken to, and some of them very, brass, or in New York, what they would call white shirts, very high ranking. And they are just appalled and aghast at this whole production. And it's interesting because, a lot of them will say, my God, the incompetence of the way they did the crime scene. But a lot of them are like, no, these guys are dirty.
Right. It's not just like, we're not just talking about incompetence. It's a different
what?
level.
The people who I would suggest are the best judge of like dirty cops are good cops.
That's right.
Nobody
hates.
They know the
dirty
culture.
cop.
They know what real cops do. They know what bad cops do. And a lot of the ones that I've spoken to are like, these guys are no good in the state, particularly the state police. And of course, a couple of the Canton County cops who, I mean, you'd think they're on the set of Mayberry with the way they, but it's bad.
Thank you, Robbie, for coming in from Australia. Rock on. We appreciate you. I appreciate you as well. Mark, any final thoughts before we wrap? I think we've pretty much said everything we could possibly say for today.
Same thing I've thought since this started. I think it's over. I think it's been over. But I mean, what more do you need? And one day you just wish that these people would go home, loudly, look in the mirror, take a deep breath, and just say, what kind of lawyer do I want to be? What kind of prosecutor do I want to be? And when do I get the courage to just stop this charade? And it's not going to happen. I mean, it seems pretty clear.
When, if ever.
How long before I decide to do something? I mean, but, and I said this on Twitter earlier today too, as much as you want to hate Proctor and all those guys, which you should. I mean, they're an embarrassment. The real bad guy here is Michael Morrissey. He has the power to stop this
at
He's
any
the
time.
only one and he knows the witnesses that he's allowing his office to soil itself. I mean, the reputation that he's causing his office is irreparable. I mean, he's toast, I would imagine, as DA when people, maybe he'll win the Canton vote, but, probably nobody else. And he allows this to happen. He sends in his guy to say these witnesses are credible. You can't possibly think that these witnesses are credible. He's going to send in his guy to argue that the defense Celebrate records are wrong, all of this other stuff. And he's just going to let it go. And this is the same guy who stood up in front of a bank of microphones last summer and gave a summation about how innocent these people were, their victims, and said Michael Proctor does not know the Alberts. And today, under oath, Proctor said, well, actually, I know 4 of them quite well. Now, he wouldn't use the words quite well, but I mean, the district attorney went on TV.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It was not in front of a bank of microphones because it was not a press conference. He recorded that in his office and then just pushed it out on the internet. He didn't take questions.
But
he
tampered with potential jurors and influenced the jury pool
You
so
think?
much so that this judge allowed some of this fakakta evidence to come in when no door was opened. It really wasn't.
No.
And let it all in. And he's never apologized for that. And that's disgraceful.
Do you think he's on the witness list for the defense? Do you think they can compel him to testify? I say yes. What say you?
I mean, what about the conflict of interest types? I mean, what exactly?
About all of the shit that I don't curse on this channel. All of the stuff that he got up and said in that statement. How did he have personal knowledge of that? Michael Proctor was never at 34th Fairview that day. None of these people in the house did anything wrong. They are being harassed. It must stop. It has to stop. Where did he get his personal information?
I agree with you that would be the best argument. And the question is, would this judge say, well, that's collateral, so I'm not going to allow it? On the other hand, Proctor, he didn't really add any light on any of this. So those statements are still floating out there. And he did make those statements. He did say that they never went in the house and that Proctor had no relationship. I mean, I would try to do it.
He said Colin Albert was not at 34 Fairview that night. That's what he said. Colin Albert was never there. He didn't say Colin Albert left before John O'Keefe allegedly showed up. He said Colin Albert was never there.
I would try to do it.
I believe. because I've watched that hostage video. I call it 100 times.
Let the judge say no. That's
Mhm.
the worst she can do is say, I'm not going to allow you to do it.
Right.
But
Who's been feeding him the information? That's what I want to know. Thank you, Broken Baker. So Proctor lied to the federal investigation.
I mean, we don't know literally what he was asked in the grand jury. I
Mhm.
mean, we know it appears he gave dishonest and inaccurate testimony about his relationship to the Alberts on some level. The real question is, what did they ask him about the car? And more importantly, what do they know? I mean, you could go back and as you said earlier, these guys have receipts. They've thought this through. And also, if I were the DA, I'd be very worried about one thing. They're very disciplined in playing the long game. They have held evidence that lesser skilled lawyers they would have to get out
Yeah.
and can't. I mean, the way they held those crazy text messages for Matthew McCabe because they knew he was the weak one and got it all out rather than Brian Albert, like who was going to
Yep.
be a little more feisty. And, I would be concerned that they still have things to come that they have not yet unleashed. Like, for example,
Right.
when they had Brian Higgins up there, they were asking him about being in the Sally Port at a certain time with certain people, including Berkowitz.
Hmm.
That's not coming from nowhere. That's coming from the federal government. Okay. No question. They know something about the Sally Port that I think they still haven't fully unleashed.
Yeah. And Berkowitz, I think, is on the list too.
He is. And what's interesting is why isn't the DA calling him? He claims he found something. They somehow got that in with hearsay, which is unfortunate. I think it was Lank way back when said, "Oh, Berkowitz told me he found
He
this."
called me. Right.
But that's not proper either.
No, of course it isn't. But what is proper in this trial so far?
As you said yourself, it's kangaroo court is probably
very complimentary.
Yannetti said Proctor perjured himself today with what he said about him in redirect about the pictures of Yannetti. By the way, Lally, once again, read the room, man. You really wanted to redirect Proctor on why he hates Karen Reed's lawyer. You want to bring it back into focus about how ridiculous he was. Awful.
Right. Proctor said the reason I hated Yannetti was because he was publicly talking about me and that I was corrupt and that I was dishonest.
Yeah, and is there a truth problem with what he said?
That's what I said. I said truth is a complete defense, and you've shown during your testimony. This is, I think, when you were on break. You've shown here during your testimony the past couple of days that everything that Yannetti said about you is true.
You could make a very credible argument that just the text exchange with Julie Albert about the gifts, where he said, give it to my wife. You could argue that alone establishes his corruption. He was willing to accept a gift, or his wife, whatever, from a witness, someone he was interviewing and knew was a witness in a case. And the day after they arrested, that girl, as they call her, when she said, I want to get you a gift, he said, give it to my wife. That is, by definition, corruption.
Yeah.
My view.
Right. Accepting gifts.
Yeah.
Crimes. 100%.
He didn't say, don't do that. He said, give it to my wife.
Yeah.
And then he tries to say, she was with the kids, alone for 10 days. So she deserves a gift. Not from a witness in a criminal case who, after she thanks you for making an arrest, says, I want to buy you something, dummy.
Give it to my wife. Give it to my wife. Oh, Melanie and Mark, I bet y'all have been called worse by better people. Thank y'all for your coverage. Oh, yeah. Far worse.
A lot worse.
Who's afraid of little old me? Thank you to my moderators. You guys are amazing. Everyone, please hit the like button on your way out, the subscribe button. You guys kept the chat classy all day, and I appreciate you so much. We had well over 6,000 people in here for the entire day. So thank you so much for that. Hit the like button, the subscribe, the bell, all that good stuff. It's free. Where can people see you next, Mark? You coming out tonight anywhere? You going to be anywhere tonight?
Yeah. We're doing Young Jerks at 6 o'clock.
Oh, all right.
We'll wrap up. And then, as I tell people, right around 8 o'clock or so, I turn into a pumpkin on game day.
It's Celtics playing tonight?
It is.
All right.
We have some injury concerns, as people know, a little nervous about that, but hopefully it won't matter.
All right. As I always say, hang out for a second, Mark. I want to talk to backstage. My friends, be cool, be kind, be classy. Really, it is so not hard. It is so not hard. I will see you tomorrow morning for another full day of coverage on the Karen Reed trial. So make sure your bell is set so you don't miss it. Good night, everybody. Peace out. Thank
Take
you, Mark,
care.
for joining me again on a moment's notice. Love it all. Thanks.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for having me.